Welcome to NUIC Football, joined by Logan Swan. I am your host, Kyle Kampmier. Joe Merdian is going to join us later in the show to take a look at the IFA side of the NUIC. Right now, we're going to recap Week 4. We're going to look ahead at the matchups in Week 5, and then we're going to take a look across the state at pivotal matchups among our state-ranked teams. Logan, as we start to enter Week 5 now, we have two teams in the NUIC looking to punch their ticket to the playoffs this week if they pick up win number 5 in both Du-Pec and Stockton. Obviously, both teams find themselves ranked in their respective classes in the state rankings. In our NUIC football state ranking, Stockton still ranked number 1. Du-Pec has moved up to, I believe, was it number 6 now from 9? So they've moved up a little bit there as well. Obviously, there's quite a few other teams that are looking to become playoff eligible around the state as well. I know you have a couple teams in your area with Brown County, Camp Point Central, your own Calhoun Warriors, and then there's other teams that we've been looking at throughout the course of the season as well. Taking a look at that, what teams stand out to you so far? Let's take a look at Class 1A first. It's easy to see who the top tier teams are, in my opinion, but there's quite a few teams here looking to get that Week 5 win and move to 5-0, pretty much guaranteeing a spot in the playoffs, especially when you take a look at the preseason or the playoff preview projections that are already getting put out there by Susie. And we're already starting to see where a couple 4 and 5 teams are going to have that ability to enter the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 1A playoff outlook right now, and there's still, in his outlook for 1A, there's 11 undefeated teams in 1A, all the way from ranging from Casey all the way to Dupo to Stockton, Stark County, etc. So obviously those teams are looking to punch that win number 5 and secure at least a shot at the playoffs. I would assume 5 wins in 1A will get you in, just based on how it's gone in previous years. So it's shaping up to be a fun playoff race. Obviously, with the enrollments changing again, that threw another wrench into things for some schools that probably weren't as thrilled about it. But that's another topic to talk about.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a muck up there. Not too much really affected the smaller classes, really. It did shift the cut lines just a little bit. Like 1A is now sitting, I believe it's sitting right at Sterling Newman at 301.95 now, as Allah has dropped from 304 down to 296 for their enrollment totals. Taking a look at Class 2A, a team that we've talked a lot about was Wilmington, and they originally started at 432. They're in the AP state rankings in Class 3A. Their enrollment then dropped below the projected 2A cut line, and they were at 406, and now they're at 400, which is, in my opinion, going to solidify them into the Class 2A field. And then taking a look at Class 3A right now, the projected cutoff line is like 557.6 or 0.8, wherever Bishop McNamara is at. Right now, they are looking to be the largest 3A school in the projected playoff field as well. So there was some changes, but realistically, it wasn't too drastic compared to what we are going to project to see in the respective classes as far as the playoffs go. Just shifted the bubble teams slightly.
Yep, that's all it did. It just shifted the bubbles, but it was interesting because, like, Arthur, who was like the largest, it went from the largest 1A school to probably at this point safely into 1A. They no longer have to worry about bumping up to 2A. Like Wilmington, like you said, they're solidified in 2A now. There's no way that I don't think they go to 3A now with their enrollment going down even farther. So solidify some teams, and I'm sure some bubble teams are not too thrilled about it, but it's the hand you were dealt.
Yeah, what else are you gonna do? You know what I mean? That's just the way life goes, and that's what makes it fun. Obviously, we're gonna start getting into our playoff projections on next week's show. We're at that midpoint view where, we got Week 5 is here. We're going to wait until Week 5 concludes, but then me and you are going to start going into a live discussion on where we think teams are going to be and take a look at those projections into a much larger deep dive. But for right now, let's take a look over our Byron Wealth Management scoreboard from last week from the NUIC. Right now, we have Lena-Winslow beat Dakota 38-0. That game actually ended due to lightning delays and weather before halftime and never concluded. It was the only game in the area not to finish out. EPC beat Fenimore, Wisconsin 30-18. EPC had a comeback in that one. They were down 12-0 there. Forreston picks up the much-needed win over Morrison, 36-21. We're going to take a look and touch on the Cardinals' playoff path here coming later in the show. Stockton gets the big win over Fulton, 49-0. And then Du-Pec beat Galena, 52-20. So that, in a nutshell, it takes a look at the NUIC scores from last week. And then if we take a look at the current standings, Stockton and Du-Pec sit at 4-0. Galena, Lena-Winslow, Forreston, and EPC are all at 3-1. So like we talked about, Stockton and Du-Pec looking to get that 5th win and become playoff eligible, which right now, taking a look at those projections, is going to make them a playoff clinching team. Galena, Lena-Winslow, Forreston, and EPC, all right there. We have a couple of games, coming up this week that we're going to talk about. Galena and Forreston square up with each other. And, of course, EPC and Du-Pec square up with each other. So we got some tough matchups to talk about as the season, or as this week goes on. But then if you take a look at the bottom 4, you have Fulton, Morrison, and Dakota all at 0-4. And, that's going to really take a look at that. And I don't know. It's really tough to say how those teams are going to finish out. Obviously, a couple of them are going to get a couple wins here. And of course, for non-conference games, you also want to see these teams get wins for the betterment of the other conference teams that will be making the playoffs. So that way they get that additional playoff point. You know what I mean?
I do. Playoff points, especially when you're in a small conference, they're valuable. Some years, like if you're in a closed conference, your schedule just doesn't work out for you. In other years, it's very helpful. So obviously, you want all NUIC teams to win their non-conference games. Dakota this week with Rockford, Lutheran, just to get one win on the board to bump another point up. It might be the difference between being the 2 seed or the 3 seed and the 4 seed. It's very minor. So everyone counts, even if people don't think about it like that.
Absolutely. It's where the playoff push becomes a lot of fun right now. And, we're going to talk about a non-conference game as we move into these matchups and what we are looking at potentially for a projection and an outcome could help a lot of these teams as well. We're going to take a look at our first game when we return right after this. When it comes to concrete floors, don't settle for ordinary. Upgrade to extraordinary with Du-Pec Epoxy. Whether it's your garage, basement, shop, or business, Du-Pec Epoxy delivers durability, style, and a flawless finish built to last. Locally owned and trusted, they'll transform your space with professional epoxy flooring that stands up to whatever life throws at it. Take the first step today. Call Du-Pec Epoxy at 815-239-1158 and bring strength and style to your floors. Are you looking to raise funds for your program? Look no further than Leading Edge Fundraising, helping teams and programs raise more with less hassle. Whether you're gearing up for a new season or trying to hit a financial goal, Leading Edge has the tools, products, and experience to get you there. From youth clubs to varsity programs, they've helped teams across Illinois maximize profits and minimize stress. Want fundraising that actually works? Go with the local experts who know how to win off the field too. Contact Brandon at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, raising the standard.
Reach out today and take your program to the next level.
Logan, that first game we're going to talk about is going to be Rockford Lutheran traveling to Dakota. Both teams enter this week at 0-4. Last week, Dakota lost 38-0 to Lena-Winslow. Rockford Lutheran lost to Winnebago 53-12. This is the first meeting on the football field between these two teams. They've met up in other sports, but never in football. And Dakota was the only team last week to not finish their game. So that 38-0 loss could have been bigger. And likewise, I think, ratings wise, it definitely affected Lena-Winslow as far as ratings are concerned. Regardless, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's just ironic that that game got called and it was the only game to get called and not complete itself. But when you take a look at what Dakota is right now, what Lena-Winslow is right now, you got to take a look at all facets and factors that play into that as well.
Yeah, it sucks obviously that they didn't get to finish the game. It's not like the outcome would have changed either way. It just wasn't enough. But Dakota is favored in this game by 8 points. That's a good sign for them. Obviously, being favored is a good thing. I don't know much on Rockford Lutheran. They're a little bit outside of my reach. I know they're typically in the playoff hunt or playoff caliber team. I think they're in the playoffs last year, if I recall. So just a down year for them. Could be like we brought up earlier for Dakota, just to even get one win on the year and get, say, a team who's 5-4, 6-3, 7-2, 8-1, 9-0, to get an extra playoff point, to get hopefully a higher seed or split the difference. It'd be a good thing for the NUIC.
Yes. Rockford Lutheran was in the playoffs a season ago. Actually, were the past couple seasons. They play in the always tough Big Northern Conference, but they have a new head coach this year. And from understanding a couple different things, they have also had a few players that transferred out, things like that. Definitely a different looking Rockford Lutheran team. Dakota, the favorite, like you stated in this game. If they can actually pull off this win, it would be their first win since the 2023 season when they finished 3-6. And it would also be just the fourth win under head coach Eric Diddish during his tenure as the head coach for the Indians. But in the grand scheme of things, like we talked about, they get this win. That's going to be a huge boost for the other NUIC teams that would be going to play in the playoffs. Outside of that, for the NUIC itself, it brings more pride to how tough the schedule is week in and week out, regardless of where you finish in the conference as well.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of like you said, the other thing it'd just be good for morale for just like Dakota. Obviously, they're going through some rough times right now, low on numbers. Just haven't been favored in any game up until now. So obviously, it'd be a big moment for them. It'd be their, like you said, their head coach fourth win in his tenure, their first win since 2023. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be nice for them, obviously.
Let's take a look at our next game. Fulton travels to number 2 Lena-Winslow. Fulton enters this game at 0-4. Lena-Winslow enters with a 3-1 record. As we talked about, Lena-Winslow won last week 38-0 over Dakota. Fulton was shut out by Stockton 49-0 in a game that did actually get some delays itself due to weather. They did finish that game out. Last year, Lena-Winslow won this game 44-13 in week 2. Fulton had a tough go of it last week against the Blackhawks, a total of 71 yards on offense altogether.
Yeah, it's never going to be easy going against Stockton right now this year, especially it'll be brought up every time we talk about them, but especially after that win over Lena-Winslow. Like we talked about last week as well, Fulton's they're young, and it sucks that they're 0-4, because in other conferences, they'd probably look at 2-2, 3-1, maybe even 4-0. They're a team to look out for in the future years, just not right now. The big thing for Fulton is just to keep improving week by week to make sure they maximize their potential when they are the dudes and not underclassmen and outmanned and outmatched just by size and physicality and speed and athleticism. When for Lena, it's just keep rolling, just keep proving that week 2 game, the score difference was just an aberration, and that you and Stockton, the difference between you and Stockton is not that large. It's much closer than people think.
Yes, I would agree with that. Right now, Lena-Winslow has been a little hampered by injury that resulted in that Stockton game. Um, you know, Alex Schlichting didn't play at all last week uh, due to a minor injury, but they're giving him rest, obviously. Aiden Wild only had 3 attempts in this game last week against Dakota. Obviously, it wasn't much needed for him, but Ashton Gerber was able to pick up 106 yards on 7 carries with 3 touchdowns, and Ian Geisman had 4 attempts for 83 yards and a touchdown. Those two actually led the offensive output for the Panthers, and, they're not part of that starting group of running backs, so it's great to see Lena-Winslow being able to work with the depth that they have and get some of these other guys opportunities to get into the game, build on that experience, and then start to dial in what they need to do as they move down the road and get more wins under their belt and really start to gear up for that playoff run.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it just proves the depth that like you said, the depth they have. Obviously, Aiden Wild didn't do much. Alex Schlichting hasn't played the last 7 quarters of leading the Winslow ball. He got hurt in the first quarter against Rochelle, and then hasn't played since then. So it's a great sign for Lena-Winslow that their depth is holding up and that they're still able to keep on going strong, and just like I've said so much, like just prove that gap between them and Stockton and that score was just an outlier, and that the gap is just much closer than what most people will give them credit for.
I agree with you there. Lena-Winslow enters this game as a 32-point favorite. So realistically, this game shouldn't be too much of an issue for Lena-Winslow, but it would be nice to start to see them get back to full health. I do feel that Fulton will provide somewhat of a challenge. We know that Fulton's a younger team, but they have good players that can definitely put up a good fight. Fulton is also going to be playing for their playoff life right now. They've easily had the toughest schedule coming out of the gates. And after this week, things will start to lighten up on the back end, if you can call it lightening up a little bit. But they've gotten through the hard part of their schedule after this week. So if they were to be able to pull off an upset, we could be talking about the Steamers rebuilding some playoff hope in life here.
Yeah, an upset for Fulton would be absolutely massive. That would be insane amount of momentum, because Lena's been the top dog in NUIC for just so long. Obviously, Stockton's taking claim to that throne right now, but if you look at the last several years, it's been just Lena-Winslow, and that momentum that you can ride on it would be insurmountable, and it might be enough for Fulton to say get to 5-4 after an 0-4 start.
We're going to take a look at our next game when we return right after this. Life comes with a lot of big decisions, from protecting your home and family to planning for the future. That's where Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial comes in. As a local agent, Tyler knows our community and is committed to helping you build a plan that's right for you. Give Tyler Hoffman a call today at 815-248-2188 or stop by his office in Durand. Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial, protecting what matters most.
Need a logo, website, or standout graphic design? Check out Nick at Volkert Design, your go-to for high-impact branding and design solutions. With over 20 years of experience serving businesses across Northern Illinois and Chicagoland, Nick delivers best-in-class websites, logos, and graphics that get noticed. Whether you're a startup or an established name, Volkert Design brings your vision to life. Visit Volkert.design today to see the difference top-tier design makes.
Logan, we're going to go to Stockton, where the #1 Blackhawks are going to play host to Morrison. Morrison enters this game at 0-4, while Stockton enters at 4-0. Stockton looking to get that win number 5 to clinch their spot into the 2025 playoffs. Last week, Stockton beat Fulton 49-0. Morrison lost to Forreston 36-21. Last year, these two teams met up in Week 7, where Stockton won the game 54-14. Last week for the Blackhawks, Jack Mensendijk had 4 carries for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carter Blair added 3 attempts for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also picking up a 23-yard touchdown reception for 3 total touchdowns on the night. Mark Detweiler had 7 attempts for 57 yards and a touchdown to help that Stockton surge, and the big running clock win over the Steamers last week.
Yep, Stockton took care of business, right? They won 49-0, got the running clock, got in and out healthy. Like you said, Mensendijk only had four carries for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good odds. Half of your touches were a touchdown. Carter Blair, Carter Blair 3 for 59, and then 2 TDs with a 23-yard touchdown reception. And Detweiler with 7 for 57 and touchdown. Stockton's depth and ability to just keep turning the ball. Obviously, Mensendijk is seemingly the workhorse for them this year, and he's proved to be a stud. But being able to have Blair and Detweiler substitute in and take some of that pressure off of Mensendijk, especially in games that they're, say, favored heavy in, it's load management. And it keeps him fresh for the playoff run that Stockton's looking to have.
Yes, 100% agree with you there. Stockton, ever since that game against Lena-Winslow, the thing with Stockton is that their wins have come against teams that haven't gained wins yet. So they're going to begin to hit the hardest part of their schedule. But arguably, you could say they've already faced the toughest team that they're going to face on their regular season schedule. Obviously, there's a couple teams that are going to have their say in that, with Galena, EPC, Du-Pec, and Forreston all wanting to take a shot at the Blackhawks. And, rightfully so, because the Blackhawks have kind of removed that bullseye from the Lena-Winslow Panthers and put it on their own back, and are now carrying that target and bullseye on them. For Morrison, they were able to get Levi Milder back into action here. He had 4 carries for 20 yards and a touchdown. Brady Anderson was able to get the ball carried 8 times for 103 yards and a touchdown. Carson White continued to do what he did, or has done all season. 17 of 33 for 203 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, he did have 3 interceptions, which probably did not bode well, being in a tight game that they were in with Forreston. I don't know exact timing of the turnovers, but anytime you're in a tight game with a team that is hoping to get to the playoffs and you're looking to get your first win, as you know, turnovers can derail any team from getting a W as well.
Yeah, the turnover differential is huge in this, I can guarantee it. I don't know if Forreston turned the ball over or fumble or threw an interception. I'm not going to pretend I don't, but I'm just going to go on the assumption that they didn't and won it, say, 3-0 or even 3-1. That's 2 extra possessions for Forreston that, they won by 2 scores, 36-21. So just those 3 interceptions could have just been the difference maker. And that sucks if you're Morrison, obviously, but they're still working through some things in their second year in the NUIC, trying to get the wheels rolling here.
Jacob Banks led the receiving corps with 5 receptions, 71 yards, and that touchdown as well. Stockton enters this game as a 42-point favorite. No surprise there, as again, the Blackhawks are looking to punch that ticket, and they're at home at John O'Boyle Field. Good opportunity for them to get back into the playoffs while playing at home as well.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, they're looking to get back to the playoffs again. Stockton's obviously also looking for that number 1 overall seed in the North to hopefully, when leading into semifinal weekend, they'll be at home hosting a semifinal game or having a quarterfinal game at home instead of being opposed to having to go on the road somewhere. But that's a little bit down the line for now. But it's shaping up nicely for them, and I presume that they get that 5th win this weekend and at least clinch a spot in the playoffs more than likely.
Taking a look at our next game, this is one that could easily be one of our games of the week, as number 9 EPC in our NUIC football Class 2A polls travels to number 6 Du-Pec. EPC enters with a 3-1 record. Du-Pec is perfect at 4-0. Again, Du-Pec, a team looking to win number 5, clinch that playoff spot. EPC won last week 30-18 over Fenimore, coming back from a 12-0 deficit to pull out a 12-point win. Du-Pec beat Galena 52-20. That game was 22-14 at halftime. So Du-Pec really turned it on last week in the second half to pull out that big decisive win for the Rivermen. Last year, these two teams met up in week 2. Du-Pec won that game 36-8. And, our Reese and Reese player of the week goes to Dermot Dolan, who ran for 286 yards with 4 touchdowns on 25 attempts. So a great performance there by Dermot Dolan. Lucas Rousseau added 15 attempts for 107 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. Du-Pec ran for over 400 yards total in this game. Huge performance for the Rivermen on the ground with their new offense, getting things going the way that, winning teams do. Run teams win in November, right?
That's right. Run teams win in November. Obviously, you mentioned Dolan, but Rousseau also had 15 attempts for 107 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I talked about last week. I thought it was just an interesting matchup because Du-Pec they're running, they're still in the spread, the shotgun, and they're running wing key principles. It's like a wildcat system for them this year, basically. And
Yeah.
They answered the bell, 52-20 win. Obviously, like you said, it was close at halftime, but I would love to know the adjustments that Du-Pec made that really counteracted Galena that second half to just flat out just run away with the game.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, Dan Hammond had some great highlights out there on Twitter that are on the NUIC football Twitter pages. I shared those as well. Couldn't really tell you exactly when all of that timing happened, but they definitely were able to make some things happen collectively. I do believe that they were able to force some turnovers as well, which helped to give that momentum to the Rivermen. Trey Jones had a huge game on both the offensive line and then defensively recorded 11 tackles. He had an interception. He had a fumble recovery along with breaking up another pass. So great job by Trey Jones as well. On the other side of the ball, it was pretty much the Draven Zier show, as he's been once again put up for a lot of Athlete of the Week honors throughout the area, both Sauk Valley, Rockford Register Star, and what's that other one? It doesn't matter. Either way, he's got a lot of stuff going on for him. Having a big senior season, which we talked about back in the preseason show as well. He had 46 attempts for 235 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then on defense was the leading tackler with 5 tackles as well. So huge night for Draven Zier. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that help with him. His offensive line, the other players on defense for the Wildcats. But when you take a look at the stat sheet, I mean, everything said Zier in this one. So, big week for Draven Zier last week. He's going to need another big one this week if EPC wants to take down Du-Pec.
Yeah, for sure. Zier, I think I brought it up last week. He's pretty much been their workhorse, their bell cow, whatever term you want to use. He's a special player, obviously. He's just continuing to build on a great senior year that he's already had, and he's putting up an all-state caliber senior year already, and we're only halfway through the regular season.
Yeah, he's definitely doing a lot of big things, and before we know it, like we said, if he can get to that 1,500-yard mark this year, one, that'll speak volumes to the success that EPC has. On top of that, it's going to push Draven above the 3,000-yard rushing mark for his career as well, which puts him into more elite company around the conference. Du-Pec enters this game as a 13-point favorite. I'm actually a little surprised by that. But that loss to Galena definitely affected where EPC lands as far as the ratings are concerned, as we saw them take a significant drop in those ratings after that loss, because at one point they were the second highest rated team in 2A, and they've definitely taken a fall. They're still in the top 10, but I think they're at 8 or 9 right now, and they came in 9 in our state rankings this week as well.
Yeah, obviously they took a hit in the ratings, like you said. For EPC, it's obviously they lost to Galena, and Galena did not have great success, especially the second half against Du-Pec. So if you're EPC, when you're looking at film this week, for example, look at what Galena did that first half to minimize the explosiveness that both Dolan and Rosal have shown at the quarterback and halfback position this year, and see what you can do to just minimize that. On offense for him, it's going to be how can we make sure our workhorse can be our workhorse for the day, because Du-Pec's going to have a game plan drawn up to either limit Zier and make everyone else beat him, or just say we're going to make their best player on the field beat us. So it's pick your poison.
Also, myself and Jay Doyle had an interview this past week on NUIC All Access with Du-Pec head coach Kyle Nolan, Lucas Rousseau, and Brady Moore. So if you have not checked that out already, head over to YouTube or Spotify, pull up NUIC All Access, and you'll see that episode there if you're interested to hear what we had to talk about. It was a lot of fun getting on there with those guys, and great conversation was had as well. So look forward to that. But we'll be right back after this. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the NUIC area? Trust local expertise. Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country knows the market and understands the community. Whether you're upgrading, downsizing, or buying your first home, Jess is here to make the process simple and stress-free. Put his experience to work for you today. Call Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country at 608-347-3659. Your hometown realtor, helping you find home where your story begins. All right, our Jess Schumacher Remax Town, Lake, and Country Game of the Week features number 7 ranked Galena at 3-1, taking on Forreston at Forreston, who also enters this game at 3-1. Last week, Galena lost to Du-Pec 52-20. Forreston beating Morrison 36-21. Last year, these two teams met up in week 3, where Galena squeaked out a 19-18 win, which did one of two things. One, it provided Galena the opportunity to get into the playoffs at 5-4. Likewise, they made a quarterfinal run in that, where they lost to Leroy in the quarters. On top of that, though, it also showed how tough Forreston was despite having a 2-7 record at the same time. Now, this is a game where Forreston really needs to win this game in order to really bookend themselves into an opportunity to get into the playoffs, as they run into a harder stretch of their season to close out the back half here. It starts here with Galena. Next week they have EPC. If the NUIC definitely wants to have 6 teams in the playoffs, Forreston has to win this one, with then Galena needing to get their other 3 wins that they're projected to get in the regular season, or 2 other wins. If they were to lose this one, it would be 2 other wins. Likewise, next week, EPC would still have to beat Forreston for that all to play out. Now, this is just proverbial talk. This is not what we feel or want. Obviously, we as pundits can just look at this information and kind of guess and have fun with it. As for the teams, though, they just need to stay focused on week to week, game by game, and taking care of business one step at a time, and letting their play determine what their success value has as the season moves on and that playoff picture begins to open up.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about it with Forreston some last week, if I remember right, where we said they got to find an upset win somewhere to get into the playoffs. And really I think it's Galena obviously Galena this week, and you said it's EPC next week for
Yep.
Forreston. So those are the two likely ones from the pull off. Not to say that they couldn't beat Du-Pec or Stockton. That's on their schedule. I'm just using a hypothetical here. Those are the two more likely ones that they could find a way to get an upset. So this week is absolutely massive for Forreston. Obviously, it was only a 1-point game last year, which Galena won. And Galena comes into this game as a 7-point favorite. It's at Forreston, so that's home. It's home field advantage for Forreston, and Forreston knowing that they have to find, whether the coaches or kids or anything would want to admit it, Forreston probably knowing, looking at their schedule, like, we got to find a way to quote unquote steal one to get into the playoffs would be absolutely massive for them, just to get back into it and find a way to get in. And likewise, if they were to beat Galena this week and go to 4-1, that probably bumps them into our state rankings.
That's a good food for thought. They are starting to climb up the ratings. However, when you do take a look at their games, what is truly holding them back is, yes, they got the wins, but their 3 wins are against 3 teams that are combined 0-12 right now. And they beat Fulton by a touchdown in a hard-fought battle, and they beat Morrison by 2 scores in a hard-fought battle. It's one of those things where, yeah, it gives us a great picture, right? But if you're going to be a playoff team, you do have to win these close games. And no disrespect to Fulton or Morrison, as we've seen them put up some tough competition. They just have not come out on the winning side of the scoreboard yet. But at the same token, when you start to compare some of these teams collectively, Fulton has a 2-touchdown loss to Du-Pec, so that speaks towards what we could expect the Forreston Du-Pec matchup to be. Fulton did get rocked by EPC in week 1, 52-20. Likewise, Morrison, on the other hand, had a close, tight game with Galena, which, here we are. Forreston just had a 2-touchdown win over Morrison last week. So, right now, Galena is the favorite. And I think a lot of that is simply because of the fact that they were able to, Galena's the favorite, not EPC. Galena's the favorite because of the fact that they were able to beat EPC. That's the direction I wanted to go. And, it starts to look like it's more of a toss-up here. Like, we've talked about it before. Lena-Winslow, Stockton are, like, here. And really, right now, is Lena-Winslow really there? Sort of. I mean, they had that 50-12 win over Forreston back in week 1. Then they beat Class 4A state-ranked Rochelle. But their only other game of comparison is a 38-0 win last week against Dakota, and then the 24-point loss to Stockton in week 2. So, like we talked about, Lena-Winslow's schedule is going to start to harden up as well. I mean, yes, they've played back-to-back tough games against Stockton and Rochelle. On top of that, they've already beat Forreston in a beatdown. But when you take a look across all of these games and the comparisons, Forreston is there right in the mix. So, yes, they're an underdog in pretty much every game the rest of the way, with the exception of week 8 against Leroy. But they can't play like they're the underdog. They got to have that confidence. They got to be able to sit here and say, if we want to make the playoffs, we have to beat playoff teams in order to do that. And if you can't beat playoff teams and you make the playoffs, your longevity in the playoffs is going to be one and done anyway. And I know that's not the direction the Cardinals want to go, which makes this game even more intensified. It does place additional pressure on the Cardinals, in my opinion, in this game, because they are the home team, but there's more pressure on them to win this game than really there is for Galena in this game.
Yeah, for sure. It's an intriguing matchup because you look at the comparable scores, like you said, with how it's gone out, and some that could be just matchup differences. Some teams just match up better with others. That happens. But it's only, I think they're only a 7-point favorite. Galena is. It's a marginal difference. It's a touchdown score to me. Like that's a coin flip to me. So this is interesting because like Forreston is obviously quote unquote the underdog, and obviously they need to come out with the confidence that they can win this game and be a playoff team and prove that they're a playoff team. To be completely honest, for me, I don't think they should feel. There's definitely pressure there, but they shouldn't feel it. It's easier to be the hunter than the hunted, and right now Forreston's hunting for an upset, so they're going to be doing anything possible to do it. Likewise, if Galena's just like, there's no pressure on us, we're fine, we'll still get the 5 wins. That's how you overlook a team and fall into a trap game, which this could be the definition of a trap game for Galena.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, they're coming off of that big loss last week to Du-Pec. So which better way do you go about it by coming on the road to Forreston and re-energizing your team with a big win? On top of that, let's be all fair and honest here. A Galena win here almost certainly defines them as a playoff team because they still have winless Dakota on their record or on their schedule. And regardless of what happens over those 4 weeks, a win over Dakota is going to give them a 5th win if they come out of Forreston with the W this week. And in all fairness as well, Galena's easily a 3 to 4 touchdown favorite against Dakota when those two meet up in week 8. But Galena's got bigger things that they got to prepare for, because after they leave Forreston this week, they host Stockton and then they go on the road to Lena-Winslow. So this is just the start of a 3-run gut punch, look at who we are type of game for the Pirates, which, this could not be a better talking situation for game of the week than these two teams right now, which is exactly why it is our game of the week, because of how much is riding on the line in this game for both of these teams collectively as we hit the midway point.
Yeah, if Forreston gets this win, that probably secures a six playoff NUIC. It probably secures it, barring something crazy happening. So it's an absolutely it's a massive game for both teams. For Galena, it's getting back on the right track, and for Forreston, it's basically and more than likely punching their ticket into the first round, at least into the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Roman Romer was 18 of 31 passing for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, along with 31 yards on the ground last week. Mason Smith had 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Drew Koenigs had 3 receptions for 33 yards and a touchdown. Owen Hafel picked up 6 receptions for 39 yards. And Sam Amaya had 14 attempts for 56 yards rushing. And Eli Stutman also had 6 attempts for 29 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown for the Pirates as well. Despite the loss, they have good things going, but they're going to need to establish a more potent rushing attack. And I think right now that's somewhat of Galena's downfall, is that their run game hasn't played up to the level that we've seen most successful teams have. Likewise, you have a great dual threat QB in Roman Romer back there as well that can be able to do different things for your offense with different dynamic levels, but they need better efficiency out of their playmakers. They also have to get that ground game going in order to actually get more success as the games go on over these next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's been a talking point of mine for the entire season, actually, since after week 1 and week 2 and everything. they gotta just be able to get just a slightly above average run game to where it can free up their playmakers. Because like you've told me, they're really athletic. Like Galena's uber athletic, and that just having a run game will free up your passing game. It opens things up for obviously your best player and most dynamic player on the field, and Roman Romer, which he can sort of sling it, and he can obviously run as well. So just being able to have at least a couple backs provide slightly above average run production to alleviate some of that pressure that teams are showing to the Galena passing game would be massive. Because, I mean, he threw it 31 times last week. That's hard to do in November when it's 20 degrees, 30 degrees outside.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Obviously we're going to get a lot of big things coming in this game. And speaking of run games, we're definitely going to be looking at Forreston, a run-heavy team, looking to do just that. Last week, Caden Loomis had 22 attempts for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Mills added 124 yards on the ground on 11 attempts. Christian Raya had 51 yards rushing with a touchdown. Connor Polish added 52 yards rushing. Brady Gill had 39 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then Mickey Props also added a rushing touchdown as well. And it's no surprise that you see Forreston win. They had well over 300 yards rushing on that ground game. I think they only attempted 1 pass in the game, which speaks Forreston Cardinal football all over the place. And if they can get the run game going, I think that they're going to find success. Now, the thing is that when Galena beat EPC, they had a tough time running against EPC as well, but they were able to get big pass plays at the right time to keep the chains moving, while also even on possessions that didn't end up with scores, because if you remember, it was only like 8-0 at halftime. So the ability for them to just move the ball to the other side and play that field position game, Galena does have a pretty solid defense. Especially when you have guys like Gus Knack and Juan Durantis at linebacker that do a great job of defending the run. And then you got those skill guys in the defensive backfield with like Hayful and Romer that can play the pass. It's their offense that really has to get going for the Pirates for them to really bring it all together.
Yeah, for sure. Galena's defense has been really stingy all year outside of last week's game against Du-Pec, when they gave up 52. It's been really stingy. Like, for looking at like how this might play out for Forreston, obviously run heavy. It's going to really come down to how well does that offensive line get to that second level, or get to at least getting a piece of of the 2 Galena linebackers, because they can at least get a piece of them and have I don't know 4.5 to 5 yards of carry. It's a first down every two-ish plays, pretty much. Likewise, Galena, their offense can work through some things still, even if it's not where they want to be, specifically run game wise, if their defense can stay so stingy. Like you said, they had some big pass plays in key moments against EPC to get that win. It's tough to bank on that 2 times in a row in games that you got to have it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, Galena enters as the favorite. Must-win game for Forreston. Couldn't write a better script for our game of the week this week. Should be a knockdown, drag-out fight. I can't wait. I'll be in attendance for this one. I'm excited to see what these 2 teams do. We've seen some great competition out of these 2 teams in the past, so really excited for this one. Let's take a look around the state here. We'll start in Class 1A. Looking at some teams, Newman obviously got the big win over Orion last week, 40-14. Camp Point Central beat Beardstown 62-0. GCMS gets the big loss to El Paso Gridley. We talked about that one in a little bit of depth last week. We said that, if we felt GCMS was going to be a true title contender, that had to be a closer game than it was. Your Calhoun Warriors got the win over North Green 66-0. KZ Westfield beat Robinson 38-14. Brown County, a team that is just hanging out there. I mean, they've definitely come up in the ratings, but as far as the state rankings, they've come up. They're up to number 8 this week, but I think they're still being overlooked a lot. And they're going to have a great game coming up to help prove who they are against Camp Point Central. But that's still down the road a little bit here. But they beat Unity Payson 47-0. Clifton Central, our guy Matt Sertic and his Comets got the big win over Oakwood 35-21. Anawan Weathersfield is also at 4-0 with their 42-0 win over Havana. Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond. Everybody was talking about Argento Oriana getting the upset win here, but it really was Allah getting the win 35-6. Somehow that got recorded backwards. Logan, you weren't the only one who thought that they had lost because clearly...
The website lied to me.
Clearly it was
to.
put out there by somebody with a wrong reported score on the IHSA website, but that has been fixed and recalled. Allah got the win. They moved to 4-0. And the team we're starting to talk about, Tuscola, gets the 39-0 win over Clinton. So taking a look at games this week, Newman has a big one against the number 3 ranked team in Class 2A in our NUIC football polls in Rockridge in a Three Rivers Rock Showdown. Newman is the favorite by, 2 points?
Yeah, 30-28.
So that's definitely a game that a lot of people are going to be tuned into around the state. If you're a small school football follower, I know I'm going to have my eyes on that one hardcore. Camp Point Central goes on the road to Unity Payson. Camp Point is a huge favorite there by 4 touchdowns. Calhoun is at West Central. That game looks a little closer than what I think it will be, but your Warriors are what, a 3-touchdown favorite there?
Yeah, projection was 34-13.
KC Westfield goes on the road to Lawrenceville. KC's expected to run away with that one, projected to win 41-6. Brown County plays Triopia. Brown County favored 42-6. Clifton Central hits the road to Watsika. Clifton Central, the favorite there, 55-0. And then GCMS has to go to Warrensburg Latham, where the Falcons are the favorite, 28-21. So I hate to say it, but those that were all about GCMS being a team to really reckon with in the 1A field, I think their title hopes are a little on the downside right now. So not saying that they can't make a good playoff run. I just don't think that they should be talked about in title contention conversations at this point in time. Taking a look at Class 2A. Wilmington beat Herscher 49-7. Baroa Forsyth beat Porta 53-0. Rockridge beat Erie Prophetstown in a rain soaker of a game 29-12. Seneca beat Genoa Kingston 35-28. Farmington picks up the 35-0 win over Illini West. Westville beats Georgetown Ridge Farm 72-14. Tri-Valley gets the big win over DMAC 44-0. It was just a couple weeks ago. We were pretty high on DMAC, but definitely not looking so much so now. On the other side, El Paso Gridley's looking really good. Johnston City gets the 43-6 win over El Dorado. DuQuoin beats Benton 17-7. No, I'm sorry. DuQuoin lost to Benton 17-7. Benton was a 3A team here a couple years ago. Their enrollment has gone up. They're going to be in the Class 4A field. So still a pretty good showing there by DuQuoin, being that they are a solidified Class 2A team this year. Nashville with the big win over Anna Jonesboro 57-14. And Paxton Buckley Loda gets win number 2. Is they beat Prairie Central 24-14. The Panthers are starting to look pretty good once again as they are getting into that area of games where they can start compounding wins. in an always tough Illini Prairie Conference. Wilmington has Manteno this week. Wilmington is favored 46-8. Monroe Forsyth travels to Riverton. The Trojans, no surprise, the favorite, 62-6. We already talked about Rockridge Newman matchup. Farmington plays Knoxville. Farmington favored 44-0. Seneca has Dwight. There's a little bit of talk earlier this year about how Dwight should be a team to watch and a team that should be in the playoffs and all this blah, blah, blah jazz. And they sit at 2-2, and Seneca comes in as the favorite in this one, 56-12. I think we can quit talking about Dwight in the 1A playoff realm. El Paso Gridley gets to meet up with Tri-Valley, as El Paso Gridley is projected to win that one 35-21. Tri-Valley opened up the year at number 2 in our state rankings, currently sit at number 8. Westville goes to Oakwood. Westville is projected to win that one 48-21. And Johnson City travels to Flora, where Johnson City is the favorite 35-17. In Class 3A, Byron got the 63-9 win over Stillman Valley. IC Catholic lost to number 2 ranked in Class 6A Nazareth Academy 24-21. While it's a loss, impressive game nonetheless by IC Catholic. Richmond Burton beat Harvard 49-0. St. Joseph Ogden lost to Tolono Unity 40-10. Althoff Catholic lost to Merdian 56-24. Bloomington Central Catholic got the big win over Rantoul 51-6. Williamsville beat Pittsfield 64-26. Monmouth Roseville beat Mendota 42-21. Monticello beat St. Teresa 39-20. Princeton with the big win over Kewanee 63-12. And Johnsburg gets the 28-0 win over Sandwich. Taking a look at those matchups, Byron plays Winnebago this week, favored to win 56-6. IC Catholic plays Marist. IC Catholic is favored to win that one 31-19. That should be another great game there in the Chicago Catholic League. Richmond Burton is favored over Woodstock 44-12. Bloomington Central Catholic gets to play Monticello in a great PC conference battle. Bloomington Central Catholic favored to win that one 42-14. Tolono Unity plays Pontiac, where Unity is favored 42-6. Althoff plays Mount Vernon. Althoff favored 46-27. St. Joe Ogden has Rantoul. The Spartans are favored to win 52-7. Williamsville will play Olympia, where Williamsville is projected to win that one 42-28. And Monmouth Roseville plays Princeton in the Three Rivers, Mississippi showdown. This game is going to be the talk of who can win the Mississippi side of the division. Princeton's the favorite, 31-30. Last year, Monmouth Roseville won this game big. So both sides of the Three Rivers Conference have the potential of their respective division conference championship games playing out this week. What a coincidence that is.
Yeah, those are two fun matchups. The Newman Central and Rockridge one is the one that I am like enamored with, because I like how Newman plays football. I love their style of football. But on the flip side of it, I love watching Colin Schweigen play football. That kid is awesome to watch. Heck of a baseball player too. In my opinion, could, if it wasn't for him being so good at baseball, even a better quarterback. With just the numbers he's been putting up for Rockridge. So both sides of the track this week are, especially with Monmouth Roseville and Princeton on the flip side of it, just very fun matchups for them.
Yes, it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, some big games here throughout the state across all three classes. And like we said, with that playoff picture rolling out and our projections coming out next week, should be a lot of fun. Speaking of playoffs, let's take a look at this new upcoming proposal. It's more of a regional football proposal, which still is similar to what districts would be. The idea is to get, about 70 to 74 regionals across 438 active 11-man programs, leaving the CPL to do basically their own thing within their own history and traditions that they have there. But with it, we would be looking at a couple different options. One of the options would be an 8-game regular season with an expanded 6-week playoff schedule. So we would go from 256 teams in the playoffs up to what, like 380 something? 386, I think. Either way, it would be about almost 80% of the active teams would be in the playoffs under this proposal. The idea behind it is to basically take your regionals and keep teams that are like-sized in groups of 6 or 7. So you'd have 5 to 6 regional games. And then likewise would be able to schedule 2 to 3 games at your leisure against rivals or other schools to help solidify your schedule or play tougher competition, however you see fit. And then likewise roll into a 6-week playoff, and the teams that wouldn't qualify for the playoffs would be able to match up with other teams to play a week 9 game to finish out the regular season, and basically figure out if they want to schedule that week 9 game or not to have a 9-week schedule as we are used to seeing at the high school level. Logan, what's your thoughts on this? I know my thoughts. I want to hear yours first, and then I kind of pitch in mine.
This is silly. This is just district with another name. That's exactly what this is. I'm just looking at it like, this is not picking on whoever made this, because clearly they put a lot of effort into it. But like it says, this proposal brings football into a similar regional structure already used in other IHSA sports, gives the schools a chance to win a regional championship, strengthening pride and tradition across all programs. We already have that. It's called conferences. We don't need to change like that. It's silly.
Yeah, I don't understand the logic behind it to a degree. I mean, okay, so if you win a regional title and you get a regional title plaque, well, that's what the state quarterfinals are. Like, literally, if you make it to the quarterfinals and lose, you get the same size plaque you do if you win a regional championship in any other sport. Likewise, if you make it to the semifinals and lose, you get the same size plaque that you get if you win a sectional championship or a super sectional championship. Like, I don't know. I don't see. I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to make it to where, okay, round 3, is that going to be your quarterfinal round then? Your semifinals are round 4, and your super sectional is round 4, and then your semifinals are, I don't know. I mean, obviously it doesn't make sense because quarterfinals is determined by having 8 teams remaining, right? I don't know. I mean, I understand the points. There's a lot of talking points around this. Okay, yes, you can bring an 8-week schedule into a 6-week playoff, but with that, you're already watering down a playoff format that's already watered down as it is. I mean, yes, we've seen 6 teams beat 1 seeds, but typically when we see that, it's a week 1 seed. Like, I think that's where we should look at first. Let's look at actually seeding this thing based off the powers to be. I was talking to the guy that runs the IVHSS site on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it. I still call it Twitter. But I was talking to him about his format of how he does his state rankings. And while it doesn't make sense right now because we've just concluded week 4, I'm assuming as the season goes on, you're going to see a better composite of the scores and the power to be start to fluctuate and change to where at the end of 9 weeks, you're going to have all of your teams there, and you could really seed it that way. You know, it's no different than if you take like the HS ratings, because there's some states that use the HS ratings for their seeding based off of power. Now, granted, that works in more of a regional or district type field because you're not tied to conferences. You're going to have out of district competition to help expand that site of power, right? Because as we know, the rating system is a living and breathing thing until all games are finalized. And by finalized, I mean the season is completed. And I don't know. I like what the IVHSS guy is doing. While I may not necessarily agree with it 100%, I'm intrigued by it because at least he's got some points around it, and it leads to a more progressive power type system to where your top teams get in. And in my opinion, I mean, the idea of the playoffs is to see your best teams move on. I mean, yes, are there some teams? I will agree that there are teams out there. We're going to have a team that finishes 3-6 in the NUIC this year. And I'd be willing to bet that if they were put into the playoff field this year and they don't have to go up against another NUIC team and they had a good pathway, that we could be talking about a potential of at least a first round, if not a second round win by this team.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say across the whole board? And that answer's no. Because the likelihood of that happening across the board is far and few between. Yes, there's a couple outliers, but there's not that many, right?
There's not that many outliers. This is just my opinion, and this is coming from someone who did not have a lot of success as a player. I went 2-7 my junior and senior year. But if you were to tell me that, hey, you went 3-6 or 3-5, whatever the format could have been at that time, and you get to make the playoffs, I would not look. It'd be cool to get. Oh, great, I get a T-shirt and sweatshirt, but that is not earning your way into the playoffs. That is, hey, go have this first round game, and if you win, great, and if you lose, you get slaughtered. Or it's just like you said, you're watering it down more than it needs to be. It's already to a degree watered down as is. Sure, you see some upsets in the second round, but like typically your top teams make it. Like last year, you can argue the 3 top teams in the North made it, and there was an upset followed by Galena, who very clearly was just better than their record. It's the same thing with Ottawa Marquette last year when they played Rushville Industry. Like Ottawa won that game handedly. It's no disrespect to Rushville. That was the outcome of that game. Ottawa was very clearly better than their record. But how often does it actually happen? And some of it's matchup based.
Yes, agreed. And that's why, I like to work off the rating system, because at least there you have an above 80% accuracy depiction. And you can literally take the seedings like other states have, and even like the formula that IVHSS is doing on X right now. Like, there's other states that use the exact formula base that he's using to set up their playoff seedings. So clearly it's proven in other facets. But I just, like, if you really want to see 3-6 teams in the playoffs, then let's go through a ratings-based system, 1 through 32, and take a look at your actual top 32 teams and put them in the playoffs, and then seed them not by record, but seed them by where they fall in that rating system, or the power ratings, or whatever power struggle type format or whatever you're using, seed it that way. I know there's a lot of people that are advocates of that style within the state of Illinois. I know I'm one of them. But, I mean, if we're going to go and talk about changing up the playoffs, let's talk about seeding the playoffs correctly. I mean, that's one of the best things about high school football that no other sport can say. And don't get me wrong, basketball playoffs are awesome. Baseball, softball playoffs are awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's great, no matter what. But what makes football more special is the fact that you have to go and wait. I mean, yes, if you've clinched, you already know you're in the playoffs. It's just waiting to see who you're going to play. If you're in an at-large moment, it's waiting to see if you get selected. And even then, you might have an idea. I mean, we've gotten really good at being able to project who's making the playoffs over the last 10 years, once you figure it all out and do all that jazz. But at the same time, you might not know exactly who you're going to play. And there's no better feeling than sitting in a room with all of your buddies, listening to whatever station or channel or whatever is doing your playoff show and hearing your team's name called out, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, who you're going to face, all that stuff. That is special. It really is. And in my opinion, we should stick to that core foundation because that's what makes the playoffs fun. I don't need to see 6 rounds of playoff games to watch the first 2 rounds be blowouts and ass whoopings that I really don't care about. Yeah, you're going to run into a couple games that are going to be tough. You do right now. You know, your mid-level games are going to be your better games to go watch. And like you said, you know, you could have a 7-2 team that you know is going to be a title threat, and they're an 8 or 9 seed because of that record. But when they go on the road to play that game, or they have to host a team in that first round, and that team, regardless if they have a matching record or one win less, isn't a team that is going to stack up with them comparatively, what fun is that?
It's not. It just waters down. It saturates any adjective you can think of. It does not make it just doesn't make the playoffs better. It just makes it 1 week longer that you have to wait for those matchups that you're looking forward to. Like I'll just use for example, last year when the bracket broke and everyone saw, like, and I'm just going to use the South because that's the easiest one I could give, and everyone saw Calhoun at the 2, Camp Point at the 3. Everyone right away was like, well, that's the quarterfinal matchup we want to see. That at least in the WIVC area, and I know on your show you even brought up, like, that is the matchup that caught people's eyes. It's like it was a rematch. At that point we had played them a bunch over the last, I don't know, let's see, played them 2 times the year before that, 2 times that year, last year counting now, and in week 9 the year before that. So we played them 5 times in 3 years. It wasn't like we were very familiar with each other at this point. That group of kids, everything. So it made it fun. It made it fun to look forward to. Adding an extra game is just like, great. Now I have to wait 7 more days to watch a Calhoun Camp Point, or a Lena and Leroy, whatever anyone's looking forward to.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, the football playoffs already go 2 weeks longer than any other sports playoffs. Every other sport has a 3-week playoff system. Yes, you have to play 7 or 8 games. If you're going to make it to state, you're going to play 7 or 8 games. But it's across 3 weeks. Where football, you can only play 1 game a week anyway. And it's already 5 weeks long. And even in this proposal, I mean, we're looking at one of 2 things, either an 8-week schedule with 6 weeks playoffs, or we're looking at a 9-week schedule with a projected 6-week playoff. Ideally, I think it's a great fit to keep the football playoffs at Thanksgiving as it is, because it's a lot more fun. Plus, people have the time off. We've already seen the level of crowds grow. Moving the games back to ISU, while I was not a big fan of it at first, because I liked the whole idea of going to Champaign, going to DeKalb, I liked the rotating stuff, but putting it back where it started in Bloomington, or in Normal, really, it's in Normal. Bloomington's on the other side, but ISU's Normal. So going to Bloomington Normal was fun. And moving it there has really, in my opinion, or so what it looks like, has definitely increased the crowds from what we saw when it was either at Champaign or at NIU. NIU, I felt like there was a lot of fans there, and that's because over that course of time, your northern teams won more state titles. Plus, you're feeding into the Chicagoland area where 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A pretty much all reside. But going down to Illinois State has been awesome. You've been there with us. The facilities are awesome. To me, they're better than NIU's facilities, which is saying something, especially because, NIU is an FBS school compared to ISU being an FCS school. Nothing in this state is going to compare to Champaign, which, I loved it, and I'm glad that that's back. The basketball boys state finals are back in Champaign. I've always loved that. But when you take a look at a lot of other sports, their state finals are at ISU. So having football there has been a lot of fun, actually. And it's more centrally located in the state. Yes, the southern teams still have to make a better drive, but having it over the Thanksgiving weekend makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, that shouldn't change at all. It should stay the 2 days after Thanksgiving, Friday and Saturday. That's a tradition unlike any other. It that's just what it is. That shouldn't change at all. I like it at ISU. It's like you said, it's pretty centrally located. It's not even that bad of a drive for me in Hardin. I think it's only like 2.5 to 3 hours. It's something like that. It's not. It's a trip, but it's not like driving 4 or 5 hours up to DeKalb.
Right.
So I think I like where it's at. I've enjoyed my last 2 years there. I'll be there this year no matter what again. So I'm looking forward to it. I just don't change it after the day of Thanksgiving. Don't do this silly proposal. Don't do it. I'll say it. Don't do this silly proposal. I personally, if they're not going to change how they seed the playoffs 1 through 32, all that, keep it what it is. That's the purest way to do it. Obviously, that's not what your 3 and 6 teams that are, I want to make the playoffs, want to hear. But it's the teams that are 3 and 6 and deserve to make the playoffs. The next year, they usually make it and usually are a team to look out for or deal with.
Yeah, I agree there. Anyway, this thing's going to grow legs one way or another. We're going to learn more about it. The target implementation date is for next season, so it's nothing we have to worry about right now. It will be interesting to see when this goes to a vote proposal and then to see what the outcoming results are. I will have to say that this is definitely by far the best proposal plan I've seen in regards to everything. It's very detailed, very organized. Regionally speaking, it does make sense, along with classification size speaking as well. So you have class teams playing against each other with opportunities to get into the playoffs. But we'll see how it all goes. Either way, Logan, you're looking to get to 5-0 this week with Calhoun. You guys got a good game here with West Central. Between that, you got West Central, and then you still have Greenfield Northwestern and Carrollton, all kind of bunched up over these next 3 weeks. All those teams fighting for playoff spots. Clearly, you guys are looking to be the favorite coming out of that South Division. and then you pull into those 2 crossover games, and that week 9 matchup that you have with Brown County is going to be huge.
Big matchup week 9. Can't look ahead though. Just take it week by week. As a fan, obviously next week I will not lie to anyone. I am absolutely looking forward to Brown County and CPC. I'll have more thoughts on that next week, but I'm excited for this week. Winchester, they're a solid team. They're very athletic, so it's a fun matchup. I know what the score projection says, but I'm just gonna throw that out the window, and because anything can happen on any Friday or Saturday.
You are correct there. Obviously, the playoff push is building up. We're going to take a look at IFA coming up next with Joe Merdian. There, we're also going to take a look at Joe's first look at the IFA playoff projections. Like I said, next week, we'll have our NUIC playoff projections for all of 11-man from Class 1A to 3A, and we'll also start to intertwine our IFA projections in there along with Joe's projections as well. But all that is coming up next.
Hey there, local high school football fans. This is Sean Considine, a Byron Tiger and Iowa Hawkeye alumni, and now an LPL financial advisor. I'm passionate about high school football because it's the purest form of the game where communities come together, lifelong character is built, and the love for football runs deeper than the scoreboard. You can find me in my Byron office most days until I run off to football practice. I'm happy to talk about football or the markets. I'll leave that up to you. I want to wish everyone across Illinois a safe, successful, and memorable high school football season. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
Need a fresh look? Look no further than Neff Paints, where quality meets craftsmanship. From gyms and locker rooms to living rooms and home projects, Neff Paints has you covered with top-tier products and expert service. Trusted by local pros and proud supporters of our area athletes, Neff Paints brings the durability, color, and finish that lasts. Ready to get started? Call Skylar at 815-541-7338 and take the first step toward your next transformation. Neff Paints, locally owned, community-driven, quality you can see.
We join Joe Merdian as we get ready to talk about 8-man football. We're getting ready to head into week 5. We have some teams that are looking to pick up win number 5 and punch that ticket to the playoffs this week. Joe, what are some of the games that had the biggest impact for you in week 4?
Yeah, so 3 games really stood out to me, Kyle, this last week. The first one really kind of caught my attention was West Central, a 36-26 win over Ridgewood. Kyle, I think some of us were doubting West Central a little bit maybe after that opening week loss to West Carroll. Not only have they rebounded 3 wins in a row, but a big win at Ridgewood. And the other thing with that game, Kyle, Ridgewood actually led this game 20-0. West Central able to come all the way back. It was actually 20-6 at the half. West Central scored 30 points in the second half to get that big win and go to 3-1. So an absolutely huge win for the Heat. Milligville, the 28-6 win over Polo was our game of the week. And now the Missiles have clearly, supplanted themselves as a top team in 8-man football. It wins at Amboy and at Polo this year. So Milligville getting the job done on the road there. And then the other game, this was late Saturday night. This game didn't get over to, I think, till around 10:30, 11 o'clock. MCP, Milford System Park, 46-36 went over Martinsville in a game that went back and forth and just had some crazy offensive numbers put up by some guys. So nice win for the Bearcats getting to 4-0. Martinsville falls to 1-3. So those are probably the 3, Kyle, that stuck out to me the most.
That MCP Martinsville game, while I was the one that picked Martinsville to win that game, at the same token, that game, like you said, that really lived up to the hype that we had projected it as well, despite it going to MCP. But, man, when those two coaches, Coach Schwartz and Coach Baird, get together, they definitely put some games together. And then on top of that, I was talking to Coach Schwartz, and he goes, man, every time we go to Martinsville, it seems like we have weather issues.
Yeah. Yeah. MCP quarterback Dirk Newcomb, he had 243 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns, Kyle, in that game.
Yeah,
So, definitely a dual threat quarterback is Dirk Newcomb, as we've been talking about all season long.
As I'm getting ready to compile all of the stats so I can get them out there, obviously there's some schools that I'm missing, and hopefully I'll get theirs caught up. But one school I have everything on is MCP, and I'm very interested to see where Duke's Newcomb lies in the stats, because he's starting to push the envelope in rushing and passing categories as well. And I really want to get that caught up so I can see exactly where he's at. And, hopefully by tomorrow I'll have everything caught up. I've gone through and have filtered through over 50 emails already just today, trying to scramble because obviously we're heading into week 5 and I have yet to post any stats this year yet.
So you got like 20 emails left is all to go through?
Yeah, I think I'm down to like 25 emails I got to sort through.
Well,
we're making good headway in a hurry.
That's why you're Mr. NUIC football, Kyle. You're going to get through 70 emails in one day.
I don't know about that, but so let's take a look at our Byron Wealth Management scoreboard for last week. That first game we're looking at is Milligville and Polo. Like you said, Milligville coming away with that one in the Battle of the Blacktop, 28-6. You guys mentioned it on your podcast this week. We're going to mention it here too. That game was a lot closer than that 28-6 final score indicator. It was an 8-6 ball game halfway through the fourth quarter before some miscues led to Milligville taking a commanding lead and really putting the game on ice there late. Orangeville beat AFC 48-8. Amboy beat FCW 46-18. And West Carroll beat River Ridge 48-0. So really a lot of those games kind of went, as expected. Well, they all went as expected, but 3 of the 4 games were blowout games at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Kyle. Kind of what we expected. West Carroll, nice bounce back win after loss to Polo. So, 3 of their 4 games, they've pitched shutouts this year, have the Thunder. Orangeville, they got off to a real nice start on Saturday. AFC was without their starting quarterback, Chase Nearset, freshman Landon Hudson in there as quarterback. So Orangeville will just get off to a hot start and never look back in that one. And then Amboy again, Clippers just continuing to do what the Clippers do, get contributions from everybody on both sides of the football with a nice win against FCW.
Yeah, it's been some great games here. We're going to talk about some milestone achievements coming up shortly. But before we do that, let's take a look at our Northwest standings brought to you by Volkert Design. There you go. Milligville sitting at 4-0. Polo and West Carroll at 3-1. Orangeville has picked up 2 wins over the last 2 weeks to move to 2-2. And then you have AFC and River Ridge sitting there at 1-3. And then if we take a look at the West standings as well, Amboy and West Central, as you said, are both sitting at 3-1. Ridgewood is at 2-2, along with FCW and Galva. Peoria Heights picked up a win here, and they're at 1-3. West Prairie and BPC are both sitting at 0-4. Moving into the Northeast standings, the 2 teams that we've talked about are still there. South Beloit and Alden Hebron Olshel are at 4-0. Hiawatha is sitting at 3-1, and I'll let you touch base a little bit on what we learned about Hiawatha today. Christian Life is at 1-3. Harvest Westminster Christians at 0-4. Taking a look at the East standings, Milford, Cisna Park, and St. Anne are both at 4-0. Unity Christian, Blue Ridge, and Merdian are at 1-3. St. Thomas More is at 0-4. And then in the South standings, we have a big nugget there at the top with South Fork, Pawnee, and Metro East Lutheran all sitting at 4-0. Oblong at 2-2. Martinsville, surprisingly, at 1-3, but they have gone through the hardest part of their schedule so far,
Right.
But they still got to play all those big teams in front of them up top.
Yep.
And then Pal Hutt's at 0-4.
So, Kyle, let's real quick. I want to jump back to real quick just to make a comment on the East standings. We talked about St. Thomas More in our preview show this year and talked about how tough their schedule was starting out. And we didn't really know what to expect. New coach, new quarterback, a lot of new pieces. They've started 0-4. But the 4 teams they have played, Kyle, are combined 12-0. I think it's
Yeah.
very important to point that out.
That's true. That's very true. Very hard for
And
them
we
to.
thought, though, that was a possibility. We talked about it on our preview show. Now, St. Thomas More, they still could finish 4-5. And, if one 4-5 team gets in, they're going to be right there. I still got them behind Martinsville right now as far as getting in. But they go 4-5. You never know if Martinsville slips up somewhere or somehow St. Thomas More gains a few playoff points that I'm not figuring yet at this point. Even though they're 0-4, they're not quite out of it yet.
Right, they're still pushing that playoff envelope. That's for sure. And we'll see, what all brings about that. But it'll be very, very intriguing to see how that plays out. Obviously, later in the show, we're going to have you discuss what your outlook looks like at the current moment. Next week, I'll be introducing the NUIC side of our projections, which, me and Joe collaborate. We collaborate quite a bit on that, actually, bud.
It's always fun to compare.
Well, that and, we tend to have a lot of similarities when we're going through with just maybe a couple different things on how we see each team projecting out as far as wins and losses is usually the only thing that we have slightly different. But by the time we get into week 9, before the playoff show happens, we're pretty much right on top of it in lockstep, side by side, which, makes it a lot of fun. And like I said earlier on the show, we're going to have the Class 1A through 3A projections as well that me and Logan were talking about earlier. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm trying to figure out a way that I want to do it because I want to just throw more graphics into it and make it a little bit easier all the way around visually, but at the same time, just bring a whole new level to it on the social media pages as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited. We're reaching the halfway point this week, and that playoff push is really feeling really good right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Again, a lot of teams starting to separate themselves, and a lot of teams, Kyle, that, we got a lot of teams sitting at 4-0 here in 8-man football. All those teams are going to make the playoffs, but now they're playing for positioning in the playoffs. You want that first round home game, you want the best seed possible, so they don't want to just be satisfied with being in the playoffs. They want to play for seeding purposes as well. And you want to be playing well going into week 10. So still plenty to play for, even these teams that are going to clinch. Several teams will clinch a spot this week.
Well, and even the teams that are starting to get out of that playoff picture, so to speak, although nobody's truly eliminated yet, the writing is starting to get put up on the wall for some of these teams. But the games down the line that they can be competitive in and pick up wins will only help some of the other teams in their division as well with those playoff points as well.
Right. And the other thing I always say, Kyle, there's certain teams that, maybe their goal for the season was only to win 3 or 4 games if they couldn't make the playoffs, so some teams are in rebuilding mode. So, those teams are still trying to build their program for the next couple of years. These games are still very important as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everybody has a plan on what they have to look forward to going into a season, and not everybody's goals are the same. And I mean, we've talked about that in different levels as well. So, it's one of those things where you have to stay realistic with what you got in front of you and remember that you do have a program and you're trying to build that program into different directions. Let's take a look at our first game this week. We have the number 2 ranked Amboy Clippers at 3-1 going to Galva, who is 2-2. Amboy won last week 46-18 over FCW. Galva beat BPC 70-12. Galva getting into that 500 mark for the first time in a long time for their program, so that's exciting to see. Last year, Amboy won this game in week 3, 60-0. I don't have any stats on Galva. I don't know if you received anything.
No, I haven't been able to get any. No.
Okay. Last week for Amboy, Jose Lopez led the way with 14 attempts, 153 yards on the ground, and 3 touchdowns. Colt McCoy added another 121 yards on the ground with a touchdown on 7 attempts. And Caden Heath had 57 yards rushing with a touchdown on 6 attempts. Cody Wynn had an 85-yard kickoff return touchdown, and Tanner Welch was 3 for 5 passing for 20 yards. So they really didn't get a whole lot going through the air passing-wise, but between the run game and their defense and special teams, obviously they took care of business the way that it needed to be. I'm really interested to see the Galva. I wish I knew more of what transpired there to lead to that huge win over BPC.
Right. Yeah. I know, you look at Galva, Kyle, that they lost that opener, that close game week 1 to Kirkland, Hiawatha, 26-22. And I actually talked to somebody from Galva after that, and they felt like they should have won that game. Galva easily could have been sitting at 3-1 going into this one, but nonetheless, they're 2-2 here. Yeah, again, Zach Anderson, new coach. I feel like it's kind of like we talked about, like with AFC, new coach, just a new culture. And, obviously it's going to be a tough game for Galva, but Kyle, they still have some very winnable games in the schedule. They're going to be playing this thing all the way to the end, with looking at maybe trying to get to that 5-win mark. Galva's a team I have out as of right now, but they're a team I definitely got getting to 4 wins, Kyle. So, take your shot against Amboy, get through there, and then see what happens those last 4 weeks, and you never know. So we've already seen a few surprises from this division, in my opinion, this year. So, you just don't know.
Well, it is that West Division, like you said, and when we take a look at that division, I mean, we have Amboy, who's in that division, who is the back-to-back state champs, and West Central's in that division, who was the state champs the year prior to that, having beat Amboy in that state championship.
Right.
So really, the West Division has been your past 3 state champions.
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, Kyle, I've said it the last few years, Amboy team just continues to roll. Kind of like the last couple of years, they have that. It's a new 3-headed monster, but that 3-headed monster in the backfield this year, Lopez, McCoy, and Caden Heath, and they're getting it done again on the defensive side of the ball as well. And again, as you mentioned, special teams, 3rd week in a row, Kyle, the Clippers have returned to kickoff for a touchdown. So Amboy special teams getting it done.
Yeah, it's awesome to see, obviously, if you're a Clipper fan. Being in our area, it's fun to see competitive football regardless of what it is. You guys talked about the media presence and activity around the game last week between Milligville and Polo, and just the adaptation to 8-man football. There was a lot of naysayers, and I'm not saying that all the naysayers are gone. There's still people that are refuting 8-man football as legitimate football. And like you guys say on your podcast, and I express the same thing. 1, it's still football. 2, get out to those games and take a look at some good football games.
Right.
And it'll change your mind, because 8-man football is still a lot of fun. It really is.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is, for sure.
I mean, you can't tell me that anybody from Polo and Milligville didn't have fun last week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, we'll touch on that a little bit here, but that game was 8-6 going in the 4th. I mean, what more can you ask for in a game that we had hyped up so much? I mean, just an excellent atmosphere.
Well, I remember at halftime we were talking about it. It felt like the 2021 state championship game all over again, with how low scoring it was, and just the environment around it. And obviously it wasn't cold Friday night by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I was wearing a t-shirt on the sidelines, but in the same part of that, it just goes to show you that if you play a physical brand of defense, I mean, we've seen that, your top teams are both good offensively, but they're good defensively too, which
Right.
definitely brings that scoring, that high scoring that people talk about that they don't like about 8-man football, which just blows my mind. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it really brings those scores back to a more respectable, traditional football style score level as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You look at the top teams and all the teams that have won state the last, 5 years. They've had a pretty good defense. It ain't and their offense has been great, don't get me wrong, but the defense has been there as well. At some point throughout the season, their defense has won them a ball game. So, that's just and when it comes down to it, you got to have both sides of the football to win.
Yep, absolutely. So Amboy enters this game as a 43-point favorite. Not really a surprise there, but we'll see how this game takes shape as we move on. The next game features number 3 Polo. They got a loss to the top-ranked team in the state. They dropped one spot in our state rankings, and realistically, they didn't even move I think they moved one spot in the state ratings as well. But either way, Polo comes in with a 3-1 record. They're going to AFC, who comes in this game with a 1-3 record. Polo lost to Milligville, which we just got done talking about, 28-6. AFC losing to Orangeville, 48-8. Last year, Polo won this game in week 4, 50-0. What's your take on this one? Obviously, we've seen Polo the last 2 weeks have a couple injuries. Most other guys were back Friday night against Milligville, which was great to see. But at the same time, I think you could kind of tell that maybe they lost a little bit of extra endurance from being off a week before. And that's unfortunate, but also at this point in the season, nobody's 100% healthy anymore.
Right.
So you got to learn how to battle through that. But Polo needs to get back on the wagon here, and I think that they have a legitimate shot to show exactly what they're all about right now.
Yeah, again, Kyle, I think, as you said, Polo, they're a heavy favorite in this one. I think their defensive line will just be too much for AFC. Not sure on the status of the AFC quarterback situation. I know last week they had freshman Landon Hudson in there against Orangeville. So for AFC, I'm not sure. I have not heard yet if Chase Neer is going to be back or not. So that's obviously a big factor in this ball game. But nonetheless, I just think the Polo defensive line probably be too much for AFC in this one, and I foresee Polo being able to move the ball. You look at what that Orangeville run game did against the Raiders. Kind of foresee the same thing with Polo here in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Last week, Mercer Mumford had 59 yards on the ground on 15 attempts, one touchdown, the lone touchdown. He also picked up 6 receptions for 77 yards. JT Stevenson was 8 for 19 passing the ball for 86 yards. Threw 2 interceptions that kind of hurt the offense for Polo as well, unfortunately for JT and the Marcos. But on the other side of the ball, like you said, freshman Landon Hudson had a tough go of it in what I believe is his first career start against Orangeville. He did go 12 for 21 for 150 yards, threw a touchdown and an interception. That touchdown pass went to Kyle Goldman, who picked up 4 receptions for 85 yards and that score. And Kyler Wilstead, I think we're going to have to start talking about him a little bit more.
Yes.
I know it's hard to definitely bring a lot of attention to a team that right now has a losing record, but he really stands out. He had 18 attempts for 59 yards, another 6 receptions for 37 yards. But when you talk about a kid that is a workhorse or the show pony for a team, that's what Kyler Wilstead is for this AFC Raider team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's nice for AFC to have someone they can give the ball to 18 times, Kyle. I don't feel like they've had that the last couple of years, so just that in itself is a big deal for the Raiders there. So, and again, I just feel like it's a new culture. Unfortunately, they didn't have their quarterback Chase Neer in that Orangeville game. You wonder what that score could have been had he played. And that's nothing against Landon Hudson. But, freshman being thrown in his first start on the road, That's definitely a tough deal there. So, and then, Kyle, real quick, going back to Polo here, their defense, that Milledgeville game, Milledgeville had 6 possessions in the first half, Kyle. 6, and they only scored the 1 touchdown. I think that just goes to show, even though it maybe wasn't the prettiest, and Polo kind of muddied the waters, whatever you want to call it, there's not many teams holding Milledgeville to 8 points in the first half on 6 possessions.
No, that was very, very impressive. And like you stated, if you're going to take anything out of that game for Polo, is the fact that that you can play in that game. I mean,
Right.
you did. You played in it for 3.5 quarters.
Right. Well,
You just gotta finish that final 6 minutes.
I'm just saying a team like Polo going against a top-ranked team, Milledgeville, it's nice to know your defense can keep you in the ball game when your offense doesn't struggle to move the ball.
100%. And that's what championship caliber teams do. When you can't get things going offensively, you have to rely on that defense. And, arguably, you could say the same thing about Milledgeville, because really their defense came up with some big plays late in that game that helped them reverse that trend that was an 8-6 ball game to help them score those last 3 touchdowns there in the final 5.5 minutes or whatever it was. I mean, they got a big pass play that went for 6. Then they recovered a fumble on the kickoff. They recovered the onside kick, and then the next play went for a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. The whole game.
I mean, it happened just like
in 13
that,
seconds.
right?
It went from 8-6 to 22-6.
Right. I mean, that's hard for anybody to come back that late in the game.
Right.
And now you got to chase 2 scores.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't put you into a favorable position that late in the game, especially when your offense is not getting things going. But yes, tremendous defensive effort by the Marcos. Agree with you 100%. Polo looking to rebound this week. They are a 61-point favorite against AFC. We'll see what that score turns out to be, but a big rebound week for Polo. And like you said, hopefully on the other side of the ball, Chase Neer is healthy and back in the lineup. I also noticed that Kalani Force, a guy that we had talked about the week before, was also out of the game as well. Hopefully both those guys can be back and ready to go, barring any long-term injuries. But I think, I haven't talked to Coach Stone, but I do feel that we could see Chase Neer this week, which would be great for the Raiders.
Yes, it would. That would definitely be a bonus for them.
So we'll be right back after this. If you or your loved one has been injured, you need someone who will fight for you. Reese & Reese Injury Attorneys have been serving our community for over 40 years, standing up for people when they need it most. They know how to handle the insurance companies and get results, so you can focus on healing. Don't face it alone. Call Reese & Reese Injury Attorneys today at 815-968-8851 and let their experience work for you.
Thinking about buying or selling a home? Trust the team that knows this area better than anyone. Best Realty. Whether you're looking for your first home, upgrading for more space, or relocating, Best Realty is committed to making the process smooth, honest, and successful. With deep roots in our local communities and a track record of results, Best Realty isn't just in the business of homes, they're in the business of helping families take the next step. Best Realty, local experts, real results, real people. Call today and move with confidence.
Joe, our next game's going to take us back down the blacktop to Milledgeville, where the #1 host Missiles return home at 4-0. They are going to play host to River Ridge, who enters this game at 1-3. River Ridge lost last week to West Carroll 48-0. Milledgeville, like we just talked about, got that big win over Polo in the Battle of the Blacktop. Last year, Milledgeville won this game in Week 8, 80-36.
Yeah, I mean, Milledgeville, this is kind of one of those games, Kyle, where it's just like, the score is probably going to be, I hate to say it, whatever Milledgeville wants it to be here. Milledgeville, again, both sides of the ball, Kyle, are just so tough. You take a look, Week 1, They beat Amboy 30-22, but 6 or 8 of those Amboy points were on a pick six. So they only allowed 14 points to Amboy, and they only allowed 6 points to Polo. So again, I know we talk a lot about the Milledgeville offense and the way they put up points, Kyle, but their defense is just, I mean, you can't say enough about it.
No, it's definitely a lot of fun to watch them on defense because of how hard hitting they are. They're always fast to the ball. They do a great job of open field tackling. And then on top of that, really being able to set that edge to limit your gains to the outside half of the field. And you can just tell that they play a very great, sound, gap responsibility style defense as well.
Well,
And go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, the last 2 years, Carl Livingood played defensive end for the Missiles. And the Missile coaching staff, whoever came up with the idea to move Livingood to nose guard, absolute genius move, Kyle. He just plugs up that whole middle, takes 2 guys to block him, and he still gets a push. I mean, absolute genius move by the Missile coaching staff in the offseason, moving Livingood to nose guard.
Well, yeah, I mean, last year you had the bookend at Dalton Domick as well.
Right.
So this year you don't have quite that stature at your defensive end. So yeah, where are you going to get the most push and the best gain for your efforts? Move Carter to that nose guard position. Like you said, he's going to require a double team if you want to keep him out of your backfield. And with that, now that opens up the outside ends to be able to get in there and get penetration. And then when you have Caleb Sarber and Spencer and I sitting there at linebackers, it's like a perfect combination.
Yeah, Caleb Sarber, he quietly had a nice game on Friday night, Kyle. 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Seemed like he had some key tackles in some key moments in the ball game, didn't it?
Oh, for sure, he did. I mean, and he's not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination. I think he stands like 5'6", 5'7", maybe 5'8", and probably all of 150 pounds. But man, he plays a lot bigger than that size, and he's so fun to watch because he always finds a way to put his hat on the ball. He's got a nose for the football, and he plays very responsible defense. You never catch him out of position. You never catch him chasing plays. He's where he needs to be all the time, and that's exactly what great teams do. You don't have to rely on a person to make the play all the time. You play your responsibility and trust your teammates to play their responsibility, and you take control that way out. And, taking a look at our Neff Paints IAFA Player of the Week, Spencer Nye, he did the same thing defensively. 10 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, an interception, a fumble recovery. Offensively, he had 14 rushing attempts for 40 yards, 3 receptions for 63 yards in that score. And, his scoring touchdown coupled with that fumble recovery were really the game-changing sealing moments for the Missiles in that game last week.
Yeah, Spencer Nye, he had his fingerprints all over this game, Cal. But yeah, he had that touchdown catch to make it 16-6. And then he actually kicked the onside kick and recovered it himself. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, folks, try to go back and watch it. It's right around the 5 or 6 minute mark of the fourth quarter. Just amazing onside kick there by Nye to recover it. Maybe a little lack of being aware of the situation by Polo, but nonetheless, Nye, just a very heads-up play there. And again, had the interception on the Polo's first drive of the game. The thing with Nye, I'll say we all knew about him coming into the season, how good he was, how good he's going to be. The thing that has been impressed me more than anything, I never would have expected him to be, catching passes out of the backfield like he has. Not that I didn't think he could do it. I just thought with all the other weapons they had, I didn't think they'd use Nye much in the passing game. But every week we look, he's got 3 or 4 catches for 40, 50, 60 yards and a touchdown.
It seems that way, doesn't it? I was taking a look back at Sydney Audi does pictures for Milledgeville, and I was taking a look at some of her photographs, and there was one where Spencer was being face guarded heavily by
a Polo defender. I can't remember. I think it was JT Stevenson. Just straight face guarded, right? And somehow the ball's over the shoulder, and here it is dropping into his hands, and he's coming up with the catch. And yeah, again, not a very tall guy at all, just a very, very physical and athletic kid. And, it was awesome because, before the game, I made a trip to Milligville to meet up with some of the Milligville parents. And of course, Jared and Corinne and I were two of the people I met up with, and it was just a lot of fun, and got to talk with Connor and I as well. Among other people, it was just a ton of fun to be able to get to speak with different people that I have not, I've talked to on social media, not really talked to in person. And, that's a great thing. Like when I got to Polo, I did the same thing with a bunch of Polo people. And, the first person I ran into, of course, was Carter Merdian.
Yeah.
And he wanted my take on the game from the get-go. And I said, well, who did I pick on the show? He goes, well, you picked Milligville. He goes, do you think it still holds? I said, yeah, I'm going to stay with Milligville.
Kyle, going back to what I was saying about Nye in the receiving game, I think let's be honest, part of that also, though, is when you're the defense, you're probably putting your best cover guy, best corner guy in Connor Johnson. And then you're probably putting your second best guy in Evan Shank. And that's nothing against Nye, but you can't cover all of that.
No.
An 8-man team doesn't have guys to cover everything up. So you almost have to give Milledgeville something somewhere, if that makes sense. But that's a credit to Nye and the work he's put in, and the Milledgeville coaching staff for finding ways to get different guys of football in different situations.
Well, and then let's go back to the preview show, because we were talking about their offensive line and who they were going to put there. And we talked about, well, either Spencer Nye or Carter Livingston's going to have to move to the line potentially. They're your two strongest guys. You got to have somebody there. Obviously, the choice has been Living Good, but then they still find ways to get Living Good into the pass game. I mean, he had 2 catches for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game.
And he also played, probably 4 or 5 snaps at quarterback, something like that. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Yeah.
He played right guard. He caught 2 touchdown passes. He played some quarterback. And then you throw in the job he did at nose guard on defense. I mean, just here's the thing, Kyle. Milledgeville is going to have the 2 best players on the field just about every time they step on the field. And that's maybe 4 of the top 5. You throw in Connor Johnson and Evan Shank. I mean, these guys are just all football players. So hard to defend everything.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to watch. Taking a look at the other side of the ball, River Ridge, obviously they struggled last week with West Carroll. Couldn't really get much going offensively. Caden Bauer had 7 rushing attempts for 22 yards, 4 for 10 passing for 16 yards, had 2 interceptions. Defensively, they were led by Hamish Bowden and Eli Eisenberg, the 2 guys that we knew would be leading that defense. We've talked about them a lot this year. They had 9 tackles and 8 tackles respectively in that game. But just a tough go for the Wildcats right now. And when you take a look at their schedule, it doesn't get much easier, as they have Milledgeville this week. And then in 2 weeks, they have Polo. So they do have a spot where they can get some wins still on their schedule. And realistically, we're looking at a team that could be 3-6, which that's where they finished at last year. They have a high potential of being 4-5 and then getting thrown into that conversation piece of where do they stand as far as getting into the playoffs. If we do see some 4-5 teams get in, they may not be there, but they're going to be in that conversation if they can get a couple of these wins down the road. Obviously, they're going to have to do one of 2 things, and that's either upset Milledgeville or upset Polo to really make that mark to get into the playoffs, which it's going to be a tall task for anybody to beat those 2 teams. And, for a River Ridge team that
unfortunately just doesn't match up. They got to find a way to slow the game down, keep possession of the ball, make plays happen, and then try to match the physicality of a Milligville and or a Polo in order to find a way to get in those games and pull off an upset win.
Yeah, and Kyle, one other side note on this game, this is actually a start of a 4-game homestand for the Missiles. So you look this last week, they traveled to Polo. Now they got 4 games in a row at home. So in a 5-week span, they're only traveling 11 miles. Almost unheard of. So just kind of a little tidbit I'm throwing out there.
Yeah, how about that? They
Yeah.
definitely got the great scoop there, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And then week 9,
They make up
they're
for a little
gonna
bit
go
week
on the
9.
road.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
gotta go down.
they're gonna go on the road week 9 to play North Shelby, but
Right.
you know, not looking ahead, but that's gonna be a fun game too.
Yeah, and also, Kyle, not to be outdone, week 8, you got Alden. They still got West Carroll week 6, I believe, and Alden Hebron week 8 coming to Floyd Dobb Field there. So Milledgeville going to be tested here the rest of the way out for sure. They just can't be in cruise control here. So, which is good for them. Number 1 ranked team, you want to be tested heading into the playoffs. You don't want to relax here if you're the Missiles.
Milledgeville enters this game as a 68-point favorite. No shock there. We'll see how this game plays out, but Milledgeville obviously the big favorite here. So we're going to talk about our Prairie State Game of the Week when we return right after this. When it comes to planning for your future, you want someone you can trust. At Prairie State Investments, Mark Pfeiffer is here to help you build a plan that fits your life, your family, and your goals. Whether it's retirement, college savings, or investing wisely for tomorrow, Mark has the knowledge and local commitment to guide you every step of the way. Don't leave your future up to chance. Call Mark Pfeiffer at Prairie State Investments today at 815-668-8131 and start investing with confidence. Our Prairie State 8-man Game of the Week takes us to Orangeville Saturday afternoon, where the Broncos enter at 2-2, and they are going to welcome the number 5 ranked West Carroll Thunder, who enter this game at 3-1. Last week, West Carroll beat River Ridge 48-0. Orangeville getting their second consecutive win with a 48-8 win over AFC. Last year, these two teams met up in week 7 in what was our game of the week at that time last year as well, also in Orangeville. West Carroll came away with that one 44-14. You know, this obviously is going to have a lot of fireworks. West Carroll is going to come in as the favorite, significant favorite. Do you see opportunities that we could have where Orangeville can limit what West Carroll does, at the same time be able to do some things to get points on the board and make this game closer than what the projections state?
Yeah, Kyle, I really think for Orangeville, obviously, Hayden Schofield, their running back, which you'll talk about here in a minute, but if they can control the clock a little bit in this game and just, 3 yards at a time, 4 yards at a time with Schofield, and keep that West Carroll offense off the field and limit possessions a little bit, put together a few 5, 6, 7-minute drives. And I think that's something they might be able to do, because West Carroll's defense is good enough that I don't see Schofield maybe necessarily breaking the big runs that he broke these last 2 weeks against AFC and River Ridge. But, I then still think that Orangeville line can give Schofield enough space to get 3 or 4 yards at a time and kind of control the clock here. I really think that could be the key for Orangeville. But on the other side of that, you got to think West Carroll. You look what they did in week 1, Cal, to a West Central team that's all of a sudden hot now, and how they shut down the sophomore running back Graham Kelly. Basically, Race Mix was, shadowing him all over the field. So I'm sure Coach S is going to have a similar type game plan here. I don't know that for sure, but you got to think, be some sort of similar type of game plan where Mix or, Buckholz or someone is shadowing Schofield wherever he goes. So we're going to see what their defensive game plan is here. But I think that's how Orangeville stays in this game. Keep it within 1 score. You can stick to your game plan of running the football with Schofield as long as you're within 1 score. You can't have turnovers, can't have penalties. But yeah, Orangeville can definitely stay in this ball game, I believe.
Well, and that's just it. Like you said, you got Mix there at running or at linebacker, and he's going to try to move his way around to where they feel the offense is going to go. So naturally, he wants to play on that strong side, and likewise, like you said, you got Cohen good at defensive end on one side. Obviously, some of the plans of attack to help yourself would be to run away from him. But at some point, you're going to have to run to him as well. So you got to be able to get body on body, create those holes. And then when you add Buckles to the combination and the conversation, you have to be able to get hat on hat and then make some things happen and find ways to get the ball moving. Obviously, consistency in the pass game is going to help out with Orangeville in this game, too, if they can get that going as well.
I was just going to say, Kyle, if there's a team that should be able to somehow set up a play-action pass when you're least expecting it, it should be the Orangeville Broncos. Because let's be honest, teams are going to be playing 8 guys within 4 or 5 yards of the ball. You're not putting guys 15 yards back deep against Orange. You're just not, You're going to try to stop Schofield. So, that Orangeville coaching staff, if they can come up with some play action when the defense is least expecting it, that's how they can maybe break a big play with someone other than Schofield.
Yeah, speaking of Schofield, he rushed for 219 yards on 22 attempts for 4 touchdowns last week. And, right now that puts him at number 5 on the all-time rushing list as he sits at 3,545 career yards. He's well within striking distance of Carson Wart, about 898 yards shy. And he's already rushed for 1,072 yards and 12 touchdowns through the first 4 weeks of this season. So big contributions for Schofield there. They're going to need guys like Oscar Bissell and Brock Comproe to really step up and either get, like you said, they got to get play action going, or they're going to have to do some other things to get the ball moving in other directions, find ways to get Schofield the ball, and then make things happen. They were able to get Comproe to complete 2 passes last week for 77 yards. Both of those went for touchdowns. One was a touchdown to Elwin Tom for 44 yards. The other was a scoring pass to Oscar Bissell as well. He had a 33-yard touchdown reception. And then rushing-wise, Orangeville is going to have to be able to get Oscar Bissell moving offensively. He's going to have to be able to get some of those tough yards as well. He doesn't quite move like Schofield does.
Right.
He's more of a straight-up runner. He has good speed, but he's got to find a way to get the grit and get those tough yards as well, because that's going to become huge in this game, I feel, if they find themselves in a battle here, of which if you're the Orangeville Broncos, you definitely want to be in a battle, because right now this game, your playoff livelihood is on the line here.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Your Orangeville sitting at 2-2. Your next 3 games, you got West Carroll on Saturday at home, but then you go on the road to Polo, to Milligville. So if you're looking at those 3 games, Kyle, and no disrespect to West Carroll, but if you're Orangeville, with that one being at home, that's the one you're looking at that you probably got the best chance. And I'm just basing that off of being at home,
Correct.
And I'll tell you what though, it's going to be a tough task. West Carroll, Kyle, I kind of think back to that South Beloit game in week 2 where Orangeville just got beat on the pass with those big, tall-bodied wide receivers that South Beloit has. Well, what's West Carroll got? You got, Roger LeBourne and Riker Badimli out there, both standing 6'2", 6'3". I don't know if Orangeville can cover those guys for 4 quarters. Because they weren't able to against South Beloit. Now, there is a big difference. So Hayden Schofield wasn't playing defense that game against South Beloit, so that obviously makes a big difference. But that'd be my biggest concern defensively, Kyle, for Orangeville in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you there, especially so last week, Brody Smith was the quarterback had 3 completions on 6 attempts for 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, picked up a rushing touchdown. I'm not sure where Winter Harrington was. He didn't show up on the stat sheet. But when you take a look at both those 2 playmakers, you're Winter has thrown where is he at here? I just went through. He's throwing 17 completions for 371 yards and 5 touchdowns on the season. Brody Smith is throwing 7 completions for 222 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season. So realistically, West Carroll's got 2 quarterbacks they can go with. One's a lefty, one's a righty. One has a better opportunity to scramble in Brody Smith. They both throw a good deep ball. And like you said, when you have guys like LeBourne and Badimlia that can go downfield, stretch the field, and then have the height advantage to be able to come up with, let's say, a jump ball.
Right.
And then you throw in, I mean, Aiden Buckles didn't have any rushing yards this week, but if he is back to somewhat of a healthy place, he is going to get thrusted into that run game. And I mean, he's only a junior, but man, he looks like He-Man sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got that big body, physical structure, and he plays that way at the same time. Obviously, they have Jacoby Cropper as well, who picked up 86 yards on the ground this past week on just 10 attempts. Race Mix, while we haven't seen it on a regular basis, last week he got into the run game with 7 attempts and 69 yards, also picking up a touchdown. So, West Carroll's got a lot of different options and weapons compared to what Orangeville has.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're a team that can be very versatile, whether it be run or pass. And if West Carroll gets in a situation where they have to pass, it's not going to be new territory for them, obviously. So, Brody Smith, the freshman, he throws a very nice ball. I've seen him a couple times now. So, had a nice game there on Friday night. And we'll see, Kyle. I'm looking forward to this one. Orangeville's homecoming, I believe. And Kyle, this is a big one for West Carroll. You're sitting at 3-1. You've already played Polo, okay? But you still play Milligville, and you still play a non-conference game against South Beloit. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm going to say West Carroll be the underdog against Milligville and possibly against South Beloit. So this is a big game here for the Thunder.
It is. There's no doubt about that. I would say right now West Carroll would be the favorite against South Beloit, but of course some of that could change by the time we get to week 8 as well.
You're right, but that's a close game. That's not a heavy favorite by any means.
Correct. No. Not heavy at all. I mean, they're literally like right here and here.
Right.
They have similar style of play as well. Again, they can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They have big bodies. I mean, there's a reason why this is our game of the week. I mean, there's a lot riding on the line for both teams.
Right, for sure.
I mean, West Carroll does enter this game as a 34-point favorite, which doesn't scream on paper as a game of the week type of setting. But when you take a look at what both teams have to do as far as the playoff picture is concerned, there is no better game to pick right now for game of the week than what these two teams are about to see come Saturday afternoon in Orangeville.
Yeah, and Kyle, I will say that 34-point favorite there, West Carroll, it surprises me a little bit, but on the other hand, it doesn't surprise me. West Carroll definitely has the ability to do that, especially, like I said, 3 of their 4 games this year have been shutouts to this point, so the defense has definitely been there for the Thunder. Again, I think they're going to have an advantage in the passing game with those big bodied receivers and Badimlia and LeBourne. And again, obviously, several playmakers on the defensive side of the ball as well. The key for Orangeville, Kyle, like I said, you just got to if they can control the clock in this one, stay within one possession, they can stick to their game plan. Easier said than done. But Orangeville has no room for error as far as penalties and turnovers in this one, Kyle. I don't want to say they have to play perfect to be in the game, but they they really got to limit mistakes to stay in this ball game.
Yeah, I mean, there's no truer way to say it. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and spit out fluff either. I'm here to tell you the facts. Do you want game analysis or not? And you're right. Orangeville's got to have a big game this week. They have to come out jacked up, ready to go, and they have to be able to play a clean game at the same time.
Kyle, that's a noon start in Orangeville, correct?
That is
right?
a noon start, yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be a lot of fun. Breakfast at 9,
sure.
football at noon. All right, let's take a look around the state for our Week 5 games. Last week's results, obviously, we've already talked about. Milligville beat Polo. Amboy beat FCW. Pawnee beat Unity Christian 41-8. St. Anne got the win by forfeit over Danville Schlarman. South Beloit got the win by forfeit over Westminster Harvest Christian. Alden Hebron beat Abundant Life 61-37. We talked about score comparisons in that game between South Beloit, Milligville, Alden Hebron, Olsha, and South Beloit, Milligville, and Alden Hebron, Olsha. Alden Hebron, Olsha comes up with that 61 points there. They did give up 37 though, which is the most between those three teams. And we still see Abundant Life coming down the schedule later on this season as they are going to play Orangeville in Week 9 as well. So be interesting to see how that transpires and plays out. Ridgewood, like you said, losing that game to West Central. South Fork beat St. Thomas More 52-16. And Metro East Lutheran getting the win over Blue Ridge 67-8. And then MCP with that 46-36 win over Martinsville that you talked about right at the start of the show. So taking a look this week at the top 10 teams that we haven't already talked about. Number 4, Pawnee, has to go on the road to Milford to play number 11, Milford Cisna Park. Pawnee enters this game as a 12-point favorite. I was going through, taking a look at stats as well for Caden Ward, who we've talked a lot about. And so far on the season, he's passing at a almost 70% completion rate, 68.6%, 48 completions on 70 attempts. Already has passed for 1,072 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, Kyle, this quarterback matchup here, Caden Ward for Pawnee and Dirks Newcomb for MCP. I mean, and what a matchup this is going to be. Definitely look for some points to be scored in this one. But I also feel like, Kyle, both of these defenses are a little bit improved from last season. So we'll see. I see you got Pawnee as a 12-point favorite here. I'm picking Pawnee, but I'm looking for a real good game here, and wouldn't be surprised if MCP hung in this one, maybe even snuck it out in the end. But this should be a fun one.
So in talking about Dirks Newcomb and his dual threat capabilities, he's rushed the ball 44 times for 492 yards and 10 touchdowns. And then on the other side, he has completed 38 passes on 64 attempts for 709 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he's already combined for 19 total touchdowns just on the offensive side of the ball. Like you said, big playmakers, both sides of the ball. This is going to be a lot of fun. I agree with you. I have Pawnee as my pick to win this game too, but I am intrigued to see how this one plays out. Number 6, South Beloit travels to Kirkland to play Hiawatha. South Beloit enters that game as a 31-point favorite. Not really shocked by that one. Number 7, St. Anne is going to play host to number 9, South Fork. I've had a lot of people already trying to invite me to this game over in St. Anne this weekend. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make that game. However, it should be a fun one, and I'm looking forward to pulling it up on Huddle and watching it there. But South Fork enters this game as a 14-point favorite. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this one was a tough one for me, Kyle, to pick. I mean, I've been huge on South Fork all year, but something's telling me to pick St. Anne in this one. I don't know why. I just think their defense has been so good this year. But I really think this is going to be a one-possession ball game. I look for this to be some sort of like a 22-20 type of game. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring than, like, say, that Pawnee MCP game. I'm picking St. Anne, but definitely not going to be surprised if South Fork wins this one. I do think the 14-point spread's probably a little much, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. We've seen St. Anne kind of drop in the rating system. They've only dropped like one spot from where they started in our state rankings. And that's because of the impact West Carroll has had in the state rankings with that close loss to Polo that really catapulted their value. On top of that, like you said earlier, pitching 3 shutouts so far on the season in their 3 wins.
Right.
South Fork, on the other hand, is starting to climb in the ratings and in the rankings. And, right now, that's a team, too, that we talked about a lot coming out of the South Division that we had high expectations on. This is a great game for them to just put that punctuation on it. Hard for me to pick this one. I'm going to go with South Fork in this one.
All right.
Number 8, Alden Hebron plays Christian Life. Alden Hebron, Olsha enters as a 47-point favorite. Number 10, FCW plays number 14, Ridgewood in a West showdown. This should be a good one as well. Ridgewood's had their way with FCW the last couple seasons. FCW enters as a 17-point favorite here.
Yeah, Kyle, this is a huge game. Both these teams sitting at 2-2. And Ridgewood still has a game later in the season. I believe week 7 they go to Amboy. FCW still has West Central on the schedule. So, I mean, a huge game here. Both these teams sitting at 2-2. And, both of them teams coming off tough losses, obviously to tough opponents. But, be interesting to see how these teams bounce back after the big losses last week. But, man, Kyle, this one is where I'm struggling to pick a winner here. I know FCW is a 17-point favorite. I'm picking Ridgewood in this one by a touchdown.
Oh, I knew you were going to go that direction. I like what you've seen FCW up close and personal.
I have.
And I have not had a chance to see them play. Coach Todd Reed has done a great job over the last few years with FCW, making them an annual playoff contender. On top of that, Ridgewood obviously has a new head coach in Dawson Anderson. He has done an excellent job so far this season. And if you take a look at their 2 losses, they're close games to both Alden Hebron, Olsha, and to West Central. Granted,
games they both led at halftime, Kyle, by the way, I believe.
Yes. So that tells you that they got to find a way to finish, right?
Exactly.
I'm going with FCW in this one.
All right.
Number 12, Metro East Lutheran goes on the road to play Merdian. Metro East Lutheran is going to enter that game as a 37-point favorite. And, real quick on Metro East Lutheran, obviously Coach Cook's done a great job with the Knights this year.
Yep.
They're really starting to make a huge jump in impact, and their schedule is going to get a lot more fun here over the next couple weeks, and it'll be very fun to watch it play out as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, Kyle, they're a big favorite in this one. Look, they can get to 5-0 here and punch their ticket, So it's just great for Metro East Lutheran there. But again, like you said, after that, they get South Fork, Martinsville, and Pawnee back to back to back. So they're going to get tested after this, but take care of business first here, get to 5-0, and then worry about those tough teams after this one. But I like Metro East big in this one.
Yep, I agree with you there. Number 13, West Central plays West Prairie. West Central's looking to go to 4-1. They're a 42-point favorite in this game. No surprise there. West Prairie's really down so far this year. Coach McCormick's had a tough go of it early in the season here. I don't think it gets any easier here. And looking ahead at their games coming down the road, week 7 might be the only opportunity that they have for a win this year.
Yeah, definitely a team that I wasn't expecting to be 0-4 at this point. I'm probably looking possibly 0-5 here, West Central being a big favorite. On the other side of the coin there, Kyle, what a turnaround, though, after, I'll admit, I think some of us, me included, maybe not writing West Central off after that week 1 loss to West Carroll, but definitely maybe wondering what this team was going to be. And now, they got a good chance to get to 4-1 here. And, they have all games where they're going to maybe be favored in, except with maybe one until week 9 versus Amboy. So, I mean, there's a chance West Central could be 7-1 going that week 9 game where they host Amboy, Kyle. That could be potentially, if West Central keep rolling here, potentially could be for the conference championship there in that West Division.
Yeah, it very well could be. Right now, FCW in that week 7 matchup is the early favorite in that game at this point in time.
Right.
That could change here in a couple weeks, but West Central's not worried about that. Like you said, they got to go and get a win this week. They're going to move to 4-1. They get a big game against Galva, which is hard to say big game against Galva, but Galva's really starting to turn a corner, and there's a lot of buzz and excitement there for the Wildcats. But West Central is setting themselves up to be at 5-1 heading in that week 7 game against FCW. And like you said, that gives them an opportunity to at least show what they can do, restamp who they are as a program this year in 2025, and really start to put themselves into where they're going to fall in that playoff picture. On top of that, they're starting to, like you said, that week 1 loss really crushed them, and they're slowly starting to come up. Yeah. They got a great signature win this past week with that win over Ridgewood. And like you said, down 20-6 at halftime, scoring 32nd at half points. That is huge. And, talk about resiliency and able to just stay cool, stay calm and collected and just persevere. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah, West Central definitely has a turnaround here after that rough start in week 1. So,
all right, Joe, let's take a look. I know that you've already exposed some of this information out on your podcast this week. We intentionally left it so that Patrick would have it available for you to put it out there across the world. But let's do it on our show. Let's see what your projections are for the playoffs.
Yeah. So again, folks, this is me projecting every game right the rest of the season. And, there's probably some games in week 5 here that I'm going to be wrong on. So I could get messed up real quick. But here's what I'm looking at now. I'll just go down the bracket, Kyle, as if we were doing the playoff preview show here. So at top of the bracket, I have number 1 seed Milligville taking on number 16 seed Martinsville. Number 8, Alden Hebron versus number 9, Milford Cissna Park. What a fun matchup that would be. Number 4, South Fork against number 13, Ridgewood. And Kyle, these two teams always seem to meet up in the first round, so I don't think this is crazy.
I think if you're Coach Zach Hamlin, you're hoping that these projections don't come to fruition, because I don't know if he really wants to see Ridgewood again in round 1.
I don't think Coach Hamlin would be upset with a 4 seed, though, by any means.
No, absolutely not.
5 seed Pawnee against 12 seeded West Carroll. The 2 seed St. Anne versus the 15 seed FCW. 7 seed Amboy versus 10 seed Metro East. 3 seed Polo versus 14 Kirkland, and 6 seed South Beloit versus 11 seed West Central. Now, again, Kyle, so many games, could change these predictions. We got a couple this week with the St. Anne game. St. Anne versus South Fork. I'm sorry, lost my mind there for a second. And then Pawnee at MCP. And also Ridgewood versus FCW. Yeah. That Ridgewood versus FCW game, I'm projecting Ridgewood, but I'm not going to be surprised if FCW wins that one. That takes them from a 15 up to at least a 12 or a 13 right there, you know. And then you got that game
Yeah.
later in the year, they play West Central where they can move up even more. Right now, I'm projecting West Central Ridgewood to win those 2 games against FCW, but again, I could still see FCW winning those 2 games, and moving up. Kyle, where I really struggled with this was the teams in the South and the East. All the top teams have yet to play each other yet, so it was hard to try to decipher who was going to win those games until they start playing each other, between St. Anne, MCP, Pawnee, South Fork, and Metro East. Like, for example, I got Metro East as a 10 seed, and, they could easily end up, winning those games against South Fork and Pawnee and be sitting at a 2 or a 3 seed, You just don't know how these games are going to play out in the South and the East divisions.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Right now, Pawnee is the odds-on favorite to win the division, and looking at the remainder of their schedule, they're projected to win out and finish the season 9-0.
Right.
And I don't know where that would throw them into your projections here.
Now, I only have 2 teams going 9-0, Cal, St. Anne and Milligville, and St. Anne and Pawnee do not play each other. So at the most, Kyle, you're looking at 3 undefeated teams at the most, I
Yeah,
think.
and it looks like you said, you got South Fork beating Pawnee.
Right, and I have St. Anne beating
South
Fork is how I came up with these projections. But again, trying to project these, like I said, all these top teams from the South have yet to play each other. They've all won the games they should win to this point. But now they're going to start playing each other and start to sort this out a little bit more.
Well, and that's just it. Pawnee is only a touchdown favorite over South Fork at this point right now.
Right.
So it would be interesting to see how this changes going into next week even. And next week, we can compare notes on the show and talk about your projections to my projection, just so we can see where our differences lie, just to give the viewers a little bit of a different viewpoint as well. And it should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, Kyle, one more note here. The last spot at Martinsville, I got them as a 16 seed. I got them getting in at 4 and 5. There's 2 other teams that could be in that conversation, possibly at 4 and 5. I got the Orangeville Broncos. They would need to probably beat West Carroll this week to get in that conversation. And then a team that we're not even thinking about for playoffs right now, St. Thomas More. They're sitting at 0 and 4. They definitely could finish 4 and 5. Now, they are behind Martinsville in playoff points right now by a couple. But you don't know. A couple games swing away, we're not going to think maybe St. Thomas More catches Martinsville in playoff points. But right now, I got Martinsville slated in that 16 spot. I got 1 4 and 5 team making the playoffs here.
Now, here's another look at that. Have you taken a look to see where Unity Christian would end up if they get to 4 and 5?
I have not.
So that's going to be another team to look at as well, because I feel Unity Christian is probably one of the strongest teams next to Martinsville that's sitting at 1 and 3 currently.
Okay, and they do have 3 games there where they definitely are probably could win.
Yes.
Okay, so let's throw them in that conversation as well.
I just think that's a team we need to start getting a little bit more information on and seeing where they might end up or lie as well, because I think that they can get in that conversation. I know I saw a couple people talking about, Oblong as well. I don't know where they would end up per se. They weren't really on my radar at all last year, but they're sitting here right now at 2 and 2, and they play Unity Christian this week. So I would think that the winner of this game is going to be the team that we can start talking about to throw into that 4 and 5 conversation.
Right, still be in the conversation. You go back to Unity Christian. They do play St. Thomas More week 8, Kyle, so that would probably eliminate one of those teams there.
Correct.
Which by week 8, after week 8, we're gonna know a lot more anyways.
Oh, of course.
But but
It
just
gets a
looking
lot
ahead.
easier to project out.
But
Yeah,
no, it's going to be – and again, Kyle, we don't know – I got Milledgeville sitting there at number 1. They're going to have plenty of playoff points. We just don't know about that matchup week 9 against North Shelby out of Missouri. The state runner-up from Missouri against the state runner-up Milledgeville from last year. And North Shelby, they've been rolling in their first 4 weeks as well, just like the Missiles have. So you don't know how that game's going to play out. It's a neutral field, and that changes the whole bracket if Milledgeville loses that game week 9, Kyle, for sure.
Right. Agreed. I'll touch on that here in a second. Going back to Oblong Unity Christian,
Yes.
just to give the viewers a little bit of a look there. Oblong enters this week's game against Unity Christian as a touchdown favorite.
Okay.
So that really is a toss-up game. So that is definitely going to be a lot of fun to watch. That, as far as North Shelby Milledgeville, that will be a huge game. Like you said, state runner-ups last year in Missouri. They're also currently rated number 4 in the state of Missouri.
Okay.
And their rating would place them number 2 in the state of Illinois if they were playing in the IADFA, right behind Milledgeville.
Wow. That's awesome. That'll be a fun matchup for sure. And what a great test for Milledgeville going into the playoffs.
Oh, 100%. Win or lose. What
Yeah.
are you? I mean, okay, so you might lose a seeding. If you were to hypothetically lose the game, you're gonna lose that number 1 seed. Right now, you're the favorite, but that's just, again, hypothetically speaking as well.
Well, and Kyle, there's a chance too. Let's say Milledgeville does lose that game, they still could be the number 1 seed. All those teams in the South and East beat up on each other. We could be looking at no undefeated teams going to the playoffs. It's a possibility for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. And that would be something we have not seen in the entire time of IADFA.
No, we have not.
The number 1 seed being 8-1.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying it's a possibility if Milledgeville were to lose week 9 to North Shelby. Because, again, Pawnee, St. Anne, South Fork, Metro East, MCP, they got to start playing each other here. And all those teams I just mentioned, they play at least 2 of those other teams. So, could someone go 9-0? Yeah, for sure. 2 of them could go 9-0, but there's a chance that none of them finish 9-0.
I will say if St. Anne is to beat South Fork this week, they're definitely going to see a huge impact in the ratings as well.
Right.
Because right now, South Fork in the ratings is number 8. St. Anne is number 14.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, for sure.
And you have Martinsville getting in at 4 and 5, with Orangeville being in that conversation. And the hard part is that Martinsville's opponent's record is 12 and 3 currently to Orangeville's opponent's record at 9 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it would go off of, wins against your opponents, head-to-head competition, and then playoff points is how the IADFA does their seeding. But ratings-wise, Orangeville is above Martinsville in the ratings by 1. If we're to seed the playoffs right now, based off the rating system, Orangeville would be your last team in, Martinsville your first team out, instead of the other way around.
Yeah, I find that interesting you say the rating system, and you said St. Anne's at 14, Kyle.
Yeah.
I got them as my 2 seed.
Yeah.
But again, they easily could lose to South Fork, easily lose to MCP. I still see them no worse than 7 and 2. But it's just interesting when you compare the ratings to the actual rankings and just where we think teams might finish.
Well, that's just it. I mean, this is a fluid thing. So as teams win and lose, it changes weekly as well. So, like I said, if St. Anne does come out with the win, they're going to jump tremendously going into next week's release of the ratings.
Yeah, Kyle, the other thing I noticed too when I did my projections here, I had 11 teams at 7 and 2 or better. which puts 3 teams, the 9, 10, 11 seeds at 7-2 on the road in the first round. Still one team at 7-2 at home. But, man, it just shows the importance of these games down the stretch, Kyle, where
Well, and it goes
the
back
only
to what,
guarantee you got is a home game at first round is to go 8-1 or better.
yes. And
I
it
mean,
goes back to what we saw Coach Lawler state in a newspaper clipping earlier this week is just the overall parity that 8-man
right.
is starting to see. I mean, yes, you still have the lower tier, but when you're taking a look at the teams that are going to be playoff representative teams, there is a lot more closure on that whole situation there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I can't wait. And again, these projections are going to probably look a lot different when we're sitting here a week from now, because again, you got 4 big games this week across the state that definitely could alter my projections quite a bit here.
It's exciting. It sure is. Don't hate Joe for putting down what his projections are. The important part is, one, that's a human element. The other human element is you still got to get out there and play those games and get those W's.
Yep. Kyle, I can't wait till next week when we can compare our projections here a little bit. That'll be fun.
Yes. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've already started putting my spreadsheet together. I got a lot of work to do this weekend. I've gained a lot of steps forward this week already on the statistical side of things. So
Right.
now I can start putting the information into the spreadsheet, being able to spit that back out. We've also put together the actual playoff format and how opponents wins, all that stuff to break off tiebreakers. I have that all illustrated in there as well. Yes, I'm excited. I cannot wait till we take a look and get on the show next week and talk about it. It's going to be fun.
Sounds good. Can't wait. But some big games this week, Kyle. I'll be looking forward to being in touch with you over the weekend here. It's definitely going to be some good football once again here, 8-man across the state.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's going to be a lot of fun as well. I'll be at both of our 11-man and 8-man games of the week. So I'll be in Forreston Friday night. I'll be in Orangeville Saturday afternoon, picking up another couple games here on a weekend just to get even more vision on what's going on. I plan to have my eyes on that St. Anne game with South Fork as well. Really interested to see that one. And if I can take a look at
Pawnee and MCP.
Yes.
I believe that's a 2:00 Saturday start, I believe.
Yeah, and that will be on NFHS as well.
Yep.
So the St. Anne game will be on Huddle. The MCP game will be on NFHS. Gonna be a lot of fun. I cannot wait. I'm definitely excited for this weekend, as I am every weekend.
Yeah.
But there, like you said, there's just so many great games this week.
Yep, a lot of big games, a lot of important games, and Kyle, hard to believe we're going to be past the halfway point here in a couple days.
Before you know it, we're going to be here on a Saturday night talking about the playoff reveal.
I know it.
It's coming fast. I'm going to have to start putting promotions out on it.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, get out to the games, support your teams. As always, root for the NUIC.